The Honorable, the Deputy Speaker.
Almighty God, we give thanks to you, the creator of the universe, and humbly beseech you to direct and prosper the deliberations of the members of this house, here assembled for the advancement of your glory and the trust and welfare of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Grant that peace and happiness, truth and justice may be established among us for all generations.
Oath or affirmation. Announcements by the Deputy Speaker.
Honorable members, Mr. Rushton Parry, MP, member for Mayaro, has asked to be excused for today's sitting of the House. The leave which the member seeks is granted.
Public business. Government business. Bills second reading.
Honorable members, the debate on the second reading of the following bill, which was in progress when the House adjourned on Tuesday, October 10th, 2017, will be resumed. A bill entitled, An Act to Provide for the Service of Trinidad and Tobago for the financial year ending on 30th day of September, 2018. Members who spoke. Honorable Kam Imbe, MP, Minister of Finance. Honorable Kamla Prasad Bissessa. Honorable Kamla Prasad Bissessa, SC MP, Member for Siparia. Honorable Stuart Young, MP, Member for Port of Spain North, St. Anne's West. Ms. Ramona Ramdial, MP, Member for Couva South. Honorable Dr. Lovell Francis, MP, Member for Moruga, Tableland. Dr. Lakram Bodo, MP, Member for Faizabad. Honorable Daryl Smith, MP, Member for Diego Martin Central. Honorable Anthony Garcia, MP, Member for Arima. Honorable Sherian Critchlow Cockburn, Member for Lopino Bonaire West, MP. Dr. Surajratan Rambachan, MP, Member for Tabakit. Honorable Randall Mitchell, MP, Member for San Fernando East. Mr. Barry Padarat, MP, Member for Princestown. Mrs. Vidya Gayadeen Gopeesingh, MP, Member for Urupuch West. Honorable Dr. Nayan Gatsby-Dolly, MP, Member for St. Anne's East. Mrs. Christine Nawalo Hussein, MP, Member for Kumuto Manzalina. Mrs. Glenda Jennings-Smith, MP, Member for Toko Sandy Grande. Honorable Major General Edmund Dillon, MP, Member for Point Fortin. Mr. Rodney Charles, MP, Member for Naparima. Honorable Fitzgerald Hines, MP, Member for Laventil West. Dr. Borindradat Tiwari, MP, Member for Caroni Central. Ms. Nicole Oliveri, MP, Member for Labre. Mr. David Lee, MP, Member for Pointe-a-Pierre. Yours truly, Mr. Esmond Ford, MP, Member for Tunapuna. Mr. Rushton Parry, MP, Member for Mayaro. And closing off yesterday was Miss Marlene MacDonald, MP, Member for Port of Spain South. And I would like to recognize the member for St. Joseph. Proceed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Speaker. As I join the debate to discuss the bill before us, an act to provide for the service of Trinidad and Tobago for the financial year ending the 30th day of September 2018. Before I get into my contribution, Not because it's customary, because it is necessary, I would like to thank three people for this year's budget. First and foremost, the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, Dr. the Honorable Keith Christopher Rowley. Secondly, the Minister of Finance, the Honorable Colm Imbert. And thirdly, the Minister of Planning and Development, Minister Camille Robinson-Regis. And to let these three honorable people know that I and all members on this side stand shoulder to shoulder with them as we face the issues that plague Trinidad and Tobago, as we put this country on a footing which will redound to the long-term benefit of all citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the Honorable Prime Minister has said more than once that we should not be aiming to go to the IMF. He has said that more than once. And whilst we hear all the concerns by the different interest groups, and I congratulate every single interest group, casino workers, maxi-taxi drivers, I congratulate all of them for agitating for their membership, because that is their responsibility, and they are to be admired. However, we on this side have a duty to put Trinidad and Tobago on a long-term trajectory to ensure its viability. And I want to talk to every single interest group who has every right to look at their immediate circumstance, that it is better that we take our own bitter medicine and choose our route of administration, because if you leave it to the IMF, the medicine could be 10 times more bitter, and you may not like the route of administration. Let us take our own bitter medicine orally, than leave it to the IMF to choose another route of administration. Because one of the first things the IMF will do, and I've heard my Prime Minister say that there are approximately 70 to 80,000 public sector workers in this country. One of the first things the IMF will tell us is fire 20% of them. Control your recurrent expenditure. What will be the fate of maxi-taxi drivers if all of a sudden, if you have 70 to 80,000 public sector workers, 20% of that is between 14 to 16,000 people? What is the fate of our maxi-taxi operators if 14 to 16,000 people less are seeking public transport? Can't have a paycheck at the end of the month to go to a grocery to keep the groceries turning over. I am sure every single casino worker has a relative, a mother, father, brother, sister, boyfriend, girlfriend, who works for the public service and depends on the government to have a paycheck at the end of the month. So we are taking a long-term view. And long-term views call for hard decisions. And we on this side will be exonerated, I am sure, in the medium term to long term, as you look back on this budget and says, at last, you had a serious government taking hard decisions in the face of hard circumstances. I am sure. So yes, we will take the boos and the boots now, but I am sure as we continue to maintain our public sector employment levels, it will redound to the benefit of Trinidad and Tobago. So we are standing firm. This Minister of Finance is to be commended for standing firm. Because you see, Mr. Deputy Speaker, Mother Trinidad and Tobago, by whatever name, whether it's Mai, Mata, Mummy, Ma, whatever, Mother Trinidad and Tobago has been kind to all of us for decades. Mother Trinidad and Tobago has fed us, has clothed us, has given us free education, free health care, subsidized water, subsidized electricity, food card, grants. Mother Trinidad and Tobago has gone beyond the call of duty. Now, Mr. Deputy Speaker, Mother Trinidad and Tobago is saying, children, you have extracted all of this from me for decades. You have extracted oil. You have extracted gas. We have plowed the lands to plant sugar for hundreds of years. Cocoa, coffee. Mother Trinidad and Tobago is now saying to us, children, it is time for you to grow up and start to share a part of the burden. That is what we are being called upon to do with this budget. To say, Ma, my or Mata, Mommy, we hear you, and we are now prepared to grow up and be responsible children. That is what this budget is about. So, Madam Speaker, the Honorable Member for Superior, in her opening address, fought the 2015 election all over, but did not mention one paradigm-shifting component of this budget. I want to put on record that what she may have missed, I want to put on record now. Why wasn't the housing stimulation mentioned with its multiplier effect for the construction industry? Why wasn't agriculture mentioned, where we focused a lot on it? Why wasn't the business facilitation issue mentioned? Why wasn't the export promotion mentioned? Why wasn't the Trust for Tourism mentioned? And they criticized our decision to host Carry Festa. That is tourism. That is Caribbean solidarity. But our friends next door know nothing of Caribbean solidarity. Carry Festa is Trinidad and Tobago's commitment to two things: tourism, regional tourism, and Caribbean solidarity. And we stand with our Caribbean brothers and sisters. Did not mention the business process and outsourcing, did not mention the plan for creative industries, and did not mention the gas master plan. But what was most disappointing about Superior's presentation was her praise for the former Minister of Finance, Mr. Larry Hawaii. Mr. Deputy Speaker, let me remind you and this honorable chamber, it was the UNC that desecrated this same chamber when there was a motion to debate Mr. Larry Hawaii and to investigate his shenanigans in a particular deal. The same Mr. Larry Hawaii who is being praised as the best Minister of Finance, and this chamber was brought into the most awful disrepute when our friends opposite planned to have that debate stopped on the particular day. And a letter that supposedly came from the judiciary was entered into evidence that the matter was now sub judice, where nothing, in fact, was the case. It was a letter from Mr. Hawaii's personal lawyer, which was, I will use the word kindly, misconstrued as coming from the judiciary to stop a debate into the investigation of how Superior is praising Mr. Larry Hawaii as the best Minister of Finance to have sat in this country.
Intentionally misled.
That is the disrepute that this House was brought into. Let that be on the record. Madam Speaker, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I want to say at the onset, I sought leave from the Speaker to display 2 items during the course of my debate, so I'm letting you know. If you want to double check with her, I have no problems with that. That will come later on. Huh? No, sir. So, Madam, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I want to address something that the member for Naparima said. And it is unfortunate that you still have people who are allergic to the truth. The member for Naparima said that the Heritage and Stabilization Fund is going down. The Minister of Finance, on more than one occasion and in his budget debate, said he took out some funds from the Heritage and Stabilization Fund, but because of the performance of the fund above market expectations, the hole that was dug by taking out funds has been filled and has been topped up. So the fund did not decline. The fund actually increased even though we took out funds in accordance with the law. Let that be on the record. The other misleading statement where the member for Naparima is allergic to the truth has to do with the Rochelle Douglas Health Center. While he thanked me for repairing it, he said it was only because people protested. The member did not know that on the 14th of June, an urgent question was asked by the member for Oropouche West on the 14th of June of this year, before any protest. And it is on the Hansard, which I have here, where I indicated repairs would be done to the Rochelle Douglas Health Center because it was not a priority for the previous board led by the now member for Faizabad, but it is a priority for this government because the people of Rochelle Douglas mean as much to me as the people of St. Joseph. So I just want to correct that. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I now get into matters of health to explain what we have done in the past year and when we are going. And I will address in my contribution the confusion that the member of Siparia has over the $200 million in ARIMA. But before I go to that, Mr. Deputy Speaker, and I have the former Minister of Health here, we have Faizabad, who's a former chairman of an authority, and Carney East. When I look at our health system, I am concerned that we have major hospitals in Trinidad and Tobago, San Fernando, Eric Williams, Port of Spain, that don't know whether they are fish nor fowl. And we are building 2 new facilities, Point Fort in Arima, and we have on the cards one in Sangre Grande. It is my intention to alert this country that we need to have a serious discussion now about the roles of our legacy hospitals. That is San Fernando, Port of Spain, Eric Williams. Those are our legacy hospitals, and how they are supported by the new hospitals being built and the current hospitals in operation, whether it's St. James, Sangre Grande, the new Arima, the new Point Fortin. The time has come, I think, to start a serious discussion where our legacy hospitals should be earmarked for major tertiary interventions and centers of excellence to specialize in certain areas, whether it's cardiology, neurology, nephrology, whatever. Because what we have is a situation where these hospitals provide primary, secondary, and tertiary care at present. And they can't do all three well enough at the same time. So as we build out our existing facilities, we are going to have a hard discussion about the role of our legacy hospitals and what role they should be filling in the future. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the honorable member for Siparia was very confused over the $200 million for ARIMA. Let me say upfront what that represents. On coming into office, we looked at the contracts for both ARIMA and Point Fortin. Without touching 1 square foot of space, without decreasing capacity by 1 bed, by not decreasing 1 square foot of construction space, this government was able to reduce the overall cost of those 2 facilities by $500 million. We saved $200 in ARIMA and $300 in Point Fortin by simply having a discussion with the Minister of Housing, who is responsible for UDCOT, and renegotiating UDCOT fees. That is all we did. That, Mr. Deputy Speaker, is what one calls value for money. That is how you cut out waste, mismanagement, and corruption. It boggles the mind to think how UDCOT back then, between 2010 to 2015, could have agreed to an extra $500 million in fees, which were totally unnecessary. And that is where the member for Siparia got confused. That $200 million for ARIMA had nothing to do with decreasing the size. It simply had to do with UDCOT fees. And when I said originally it was savings due to mismanagement, waste, and corruption, I was asked a question in the Parliament posed by my colleague, the member for Barataria San Juan. And I itemized what was due to waste, I itemized what was due to mismanagement, and I itemized what was due to corruption. So the member for Siparia needs to understand how this government is treating with taxpayers' money. So as we build out our new hospitals, Madam Speaker, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I want the population to know that in the coming years, there are going to be serious job opportunities for people. But job opportunities not only for doctors, job opportunities not only for nurses. And this is a part of the healthcare system that is underserved and underpopulated and underappreciated. The paraclinical services in this country, we need more people to enroll in UTT, in programs like radiography, to become lab techs. These are good jobs, good paying jobs that call for a degree of commitment, a degree of training. So there is a very bright future for our citizens to get jobs in the healthcare sector as we move forward. Mr. Deputy Speaker, one of the initiatives that we undertook at the ministry that will span 2 years, 2017 and 2018, is the upgrade of our oncology facilities at the St. James Radiation Center. We have a new LINAC, which will be installed by the end of 2019. I think the board has met over to award a contract. Once that is done, we hope to start construction in early January. But what we have already done, which is on the card for many years, was the introduction of brachytherapy services at St. James. I am proud to stand with Dr. Kelly, Elaine, Mike, and all her wonderful people there to bring this type of service to Trinidad and Tobago in the public sector for the first time. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the issue of the Couva Children's Hospital has been one that has been bandied about for a couple of years now. I am on record as saying that contrary to what the member of Siparia said, we already had a children's hospital before Couva was built. It is called, and in case we forget, in case anybody wants to rewrite history, it is called the Wendy Fitzwilliams Children's Hospital, situated at the Eric Williams Medical Sciences Complex.
The emergency room sees 7,000 patients per month.
But what is scary about that, Mr. Deputy Speaker? In trying to justify the building of a children's hospital, it was said there was this great need. Let me give you the figures. The Wendy Fitzwilliams Children's Hospital, the first children's hospital in Trinidad and Tobago, has 87 beds. The occupancy rate right now is 70%, which means we have a 30% leeway to play with, which means we have beds to spare. That is what it means. And that A&E sees about 7,000 patients a month and is doing quite well. Thank you very much. What it means is that Eric Williams, Wendy Fitzwilliams Children's Hospital, every child of every creed, every child of every race can find an equal bed space in Wendy Fitzwilliams Children's Hospital. There's no shortage of beds at the Wendy Fitzwilliams Children's Hospital. Let me put that on the record. The statistics show that currently there's a 70% occupancy bed rate there. So you have more than enough space. I just want to put that on the record. Because they are making a political football out of that facility. And I've said it over and over, and the Minister of Finance in his budget presentation said in 2018, and we will stick to our words, we will find a way to incorporate the Couva Children's Hospital, or whatever you want to call it, into the national hospital grid. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I want to talk about our drug supply, and the member for Fyzabad had asked me to speak about this. In my budget presentation last year and during the Finance Committee phase, I promised this country that we are going to significantly overhaul the way this country procures drugs. The member for St. Augustine, in his contribution last year, used a word beginning with M to describe the drug procurement process. I will not say that, but he knows we share the same sentiments, but my language has to be a little more tempered. We have, as promised, we have significantly overhauled the drug procurement process for this cycle. I promised there was going to be formulary trimming. That has been done. We have now trimmed down to 800 from 1,000. I promised prescribing guidelines. Done. We have done that for HIV, AIDS, and oncology. This is the big one, Mr. Deputy Speaker. I promise we will go to the ParlView Strategic Fund to get cost savings. So said, so done. By using the ParlView Strategic Fund for the purchase of drugs and bypassing local distributors, do you know how much we have saved this country in fiscal 2017, Mr. Deputy Speaker? We have saved this country in one class of drugs alone, which is drugs for HIV. We have saved this country $60 million TT in 1 year, by simply switching supply to the ParlView Strategic Fund. And let me give you some examples of how this country was being ripped off for years. One particular drug called nevirapine. The tender for that drug was $2.6 million. Do you know what the same amount of drugs cost from ParlView? $0.3 million, $300,000. We were paying 85.6% more for one drug. Because we were buying it through tender and not going through the ParlView Strategic Fund. ParlView buys in bulk for the world. Right? We are now trying to push as much as our drug procurement through ParlView. So all our drugs through ParlView, we have gotten savings from as low as 16% to as high as 85%. From 16% to 85%. 60 million TT dollars saved in one fiscal year by simply going to ParlView.
Well done.
But there's a lot more to be done with the drug procurement process, and we are doing that now. We have to smooth out the processes on ordering from the RHA level, how C40 deals with it. That process is convoluted. It is not efficient. So in this year, we'll be tackling that end of it. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I now want to talk to the issue of the purchase of non-pharmaceuticals, especially for patients who want to access orthopedic surgeries in our hospitals. It is well known that our hospitals cannot perform the amount of orthopedic surgeries for patients simply because the RHAs have to buy orthopedic supplies from local distributors. Orthopedic supplies, pins, bolts, plates, are not part of the drug procurement process through central tender by NIBDEC. So the RHAs, over the years, on their own, purchased these from third parties. And when I became Minister of Health, I got requests, Minister, why can't I get my orthopedic surgery done? Why I have to wait? Why I have to do this? It's a nightmare. So I said, okay, let me investigate, because this stretches back years. I found out that the 4 RHAs, especially Northwest, North Central, and Southwest, together with Eastern, but Eastern is a minor player in this, they spent collectively $26 million TT out of their allocation simply buying bolts, pins, joints. 26 million TT from local suppliers. Mr. Deputy Speaker, this is where I sought permission from the substantive speaker to show the country something. This is a 405-inch titanium plate. Do you know what is the online price for the same plate from the same manufacturer to the same specifications? Mr. Deputy Speaker, this plate is $18 US. 1.8. Do you know how much the RHAs pay a local supplier for this plate?
From the partner.
$5,800.
Repeat it.
This plate online is $18 US. The RHAs, not through central tender, pay a local supplier $5,800 for this plate.
Silence, members.
That is a factor of 46 times. You see the screw? You see the screw? Titanium screw. This screw online from the same supplier costs $3.50 US. Do you know how much we pay for this screw in Trinidad and Tobago?
$23 TT.
600 TT dollars.
$576.
That is a factor of 21. Mr. Deputy Speaker, this is why you can't perform enough orthopedic surgeries in our public health system. We are being ripped off. The same thing with the drugs. I'm not calling names. But this is an absurdity, and I'm telling the people of Trinidad and Tobago now, as Minister of Health, looking after your interests, this is going to be brought under central tender purchase. NIPDEC has already agreed to do a special tender. And
Members, the crosstalk about over the two sides, please.
And we will be developing the specifications in conjunction with PAHO. I have already elicited the support of the Trinidad and Tobago Medical Association. They are giving me 2 orthopedic specialists who have no connection to any commercial interest, who will only have the interests of Trinidadians and Tobagonians on their mind. Madam, when I saw this, I said, no wonder you have poor patients in Trinidad and Tobago who can't get their joints replaced. This is an absolute absurdity. This is the reality that I face as Minister of Health. We. So I am telling the people of Trinidad and Tobago, give me 6 months to a year, and I will fix that. The same promise I gave last year to fix the drug supply system, we will fix this. A bipolar, this is a long word, I can't pronounce it, a bipolar hemiarthroplasty to repair your hips. Online, the price of this particular device is $4,092. TT. I converted it. Minister Young helped me convert it yesterday. You know what we pay for that in Trinidad and Tobago? $26,440. $26,440. That is a factor of 6.5. We pay 6.5 times, and this is when you go online to buy one, eh? Not in bulk. Not through central tender. I sent an email to all these suppliers as an ordinary nobody, saying I want to buy one. I want to buy one plate. I want to buy one screw. I want to buy one hip joint. And they send me back an email in 5 minutes flat. Dear Mr. Deyalsingh, thank you for your inquiry. How much you want? When you want it shipped?
And if you import and pay all taxes, you multiply by 10.
Right? So we are going to be hauling the RHAs over the coals for this, and we are going to be bringing this under central tender. This practice is going to stop. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I now want to come like the Minister of Finance, who spoke about a paradigm shift. In health, we must also have a paradigm shift when it comes to our health and the NCD crisis facing Trinidad and Tobago. The Express editorial of 7th March recognized this. Mr. Deputy Speaker, Trinidad and Tobago and the Caribbean wears a crown. We are first, and we're happy. We are first in the world in heart attacks, first in the world in diabetes, first in the world in this, first in the world in that. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the only thing I want the Caribbean to be first in, the only thing I want the West Indies to be first in is cricket and football. I want Jamaica to be first in athletics. I get them blows. I want Trinidad and Tobago to be first in 2020 cricket. But the point is, we must reverse the order of West Indies cricket and NCDs. Let West Indies cricket become number 1, and let NCDs go to number 8. That is what we have to do. Because as I launch this NCD program, this is a crown I don't want us to wear. Eric Williams said, the father of the nation said, the future of our children lies in their school bags. That is what Dr. Eric Williams said. The future of our children lies in our school bags. Well, let me tell you something. NCD, non-communicable diseases, sorry. NCD like diabetes, hypertension, cancers, high cholesterol, lifestyle diseases, sorry. So that is what Dr. Eric Williams says. That vision is now being eroded not by their school bags, but by their lunch kits. When I went to Mount Hope Secondary School recently to launch the Healthy School Initiative, we found 10% of 61 children hypertensive. 2 were so hypertensive, we had to send them to Eric Williams immediately. That is what is going on. But let me give you the evidence.
Blood pressure was so high, you said.
There was a study done in 2009-2010, cross-sectional study to determine the prevalence of obesity and other risk factors for type 2 diabetes among school children in Trinidad, done by Yvonne Ann Batson, Dr. Suraj Paul Tilaksingh, Rohan Maraj, and Brian Coburn. Let's cut to the chase and go to one scary line in that report. That line said, and before I tell you what that line says, for the people of the population listening to me, tell me if you know anybody who has a dark circle around their neck, where the skin is a little bit thickened, and you see that dark circle below you, around your neck. You know somebody like that? Good. Let the population go home this afternoon. Lift up your arms and see if you have dark pigmentation below your arms and dark pigmentation in your groin. Dark pigmentation with thickened skin. That condition is called acanthosis nigricans. It is called acanthosis nigricans. And that study of children, not adults, found that the prevalence of acanthosis nigricans in children 7 to 18 was high. And this is a 2009-2010 study. The study was also saying as early as 1960s, type 2 diabetes in children was a problem. Another report, Obesity in Trinidadian Children by Balkaran, Ramcharan, Singh, Fernandes, Lynch, and Maraj. Conclusion, comorbidities known to be associated with obese adults is now reported for the first time in a population of obese school children in Trinidad. We have a problem. This whole society is sick with diabetes, hypertension, high cholesterol, cancers. That is why this NCD plan is gaining such traction. And in Newsday of last weekend, an editorialized this. So all of society is now getting on board with this NCD plan. So the answer is the NCD plan which we have launched in conjunction with the IDB for $51.5 million US. Mr. Deputy Speaker, there's another clear and present danger facing this country. Everywhere I speak on NCDs, non-communicable diseases, diabetes, hypertension, high cholesterol, and cancers, I always say we have tackled this problem 10 to 15 years too late. We had the 2007 Port of Spain Declaration under Mr. Patrick Manning, but we didn't do much with it. But there's another clear and present danger that if I, as minister, don't lay down a plan now, a future Minister of Health in 10 years' time is going to come here and say we didn't tackle this issue early enough. Mr. Deputy Speaker, admittedly, for effect, if I have everyone just count to 3 with me in their minds, 1, 2, 3. 3 seconds. Each minute has 23-second components. And if I stand up here and talk either sense or nonsense for 45 minutes, 45 minutes by 20 is what, 90? 900? 900. Count with me. 1, 2, 3. Every 3 seconds, somewhere in the world, somebody is being diagnosed with dementia, including Trinidad and Tobago. Every 3 seconds, somewhere, somebody is being diagnosed with dementia. That is another health crisis that will hit us. So what we are doing at the ministry, with the help of people like Dr. I've forgotten her name from university, Dr. Babulal? Yes, Nadine Babulal. Not right. Excellent person. We are taking her studies and now combining it with our mental health policy to bring dementia, whether it's vascular or non-vascular dementia or Alzheimer's, hopefully under our NCD plan. Because there's a body of evidence which tells you that vascular dementia, dementia caused by the blockage of your brains and your arteries in your brain, has a high NCD component. Diabetes is now linked conclusively to that. So dementia is another health risk that has to be addressed. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the same way I recognize and praise the Minister of Finance for his paradigm-shifting budget, making hard decisions. This is a tough government, making hard decisions. It is no secret that last year, October, I read the riot act to the North Central RHA after a poor gentleman, Mr. Chang, died awaiting treatment in the A&E. The Eric Williams A&E has for years been a nightmare. Let's admit that. And I read the riot act to them, and I told them I want a 6-month turnaround. Treat it like a business. Treat it like a bankrupt business, and tell me how we're going to turn around this. Mr. Deputy Speaker, it pleased me, again, to read the Newsday editorial of 8th March, which recognized the significant culture change that we have undertaken at Eric Williams. A&E waiting times and throughput is now down 57%. But I wish I could say that the successes we are now seeing at Eric Williams and throughout the healthcare system was due to hard work. It was not due to hard work. It was due to making hard, unpopular decisions.
Well,
because you see, there's something called a status quo that doesn't want change. And I, as Minister of Health, am prepared to change the status quo and mash toes and mash corns. But I will tell you, Mr. Deputy Speaker, many doctors and nurses are now coming out of the woodwork and say, thank you, Minister, we can now practice medicine the way we want to practice. We can now do surgeries. Right? I know they're coming for me. There's a WhatsApp group circulating. You would think I am Lucifer. But thankfully, people are dropping out of that WhatsApp group one by one. Yes, you're right, you're going to cease. They're coming for me. But the only way to change the delivery of healthcare is to change the way it is delivered. It's not more money. I keep saying Health is a bottomless pit of money. You could throw $10 billion into the system with the same policies and procedures, it will not change it one iota. You have to make serious administrative changes.
Starting with a change of government.
And that is what is now going on. And I want to congratulate every healthcare worker who is, from doctors come down, orthopedic surgeons who know about this now and are telling me, Minister, at last. You have orthopedic surgeons now saying, at last, because they know about it. They say, at last we could operate in the public system as we want to. Mr. Deputy Speaker, some of the other activities we undertook. When I first became Minister of Health, the issue of deaths and fatalities due to seasonal flu was a high one. In my first year of Minister of Health, we had 8 people dying through to the seasonal flu. I'm not talking pandemic flu, like swine flu, avian flu. Talking seasonal flu that comes from North America. I said, I will do all that I can to reduce that number of deaths. Last year, for the first time, we moved this country from delivering 6,000 doses of flu vaccine, Mr. Deputy Speaker, to you know what? 70,000. Do you know how many people died this year, flu season? None. We had no recorded deaths for the first time in 10 years due to seasonal flu, because we moved this country from 6,000 to 70,000. And we engaged 33 health centers around the country. Every Tuesday and Thursday, you go in there, you get your flu. So we now have a template moving forward with this. And I want to thank people like Member for Princestown, because I offered this service to every MP. The first MP to do it was Princestown. And we vaccinated his constituents. I went to Shogunas Market, where Couva North and Shogunas West, that's the boundary between their 2 seats, we vaccinated people. I went to the Tunapuna Market, your seat, Mr. Deputy Speaker, and the Honorable Prakash Ramada, and we vaccinated people. We went to Gulf City Mall in the constituency of Member for San Fernando West. We went to City Gate. We went all over the place. We went to Diego Martin too, but we invited you, Mr. Prime Minister. You did not come. I always invite the MPs. The fact is, we went all over the place. You did not write to ask me to come, but Princestown did twice, and we went. The fact is, it is this on-the-ground vaccination drive that saved lives in this country. And I want to congratulate again all the nurses, all the doctors, all the CMOHs who helped me on that particular activity. How much more time than original time I have, sir?
The 2 minutes.
Thank you. I now want to come to the Children's Life Fund, because I know the member for Caroni East, with his usual self, will go on a platform and say there is no Children's Life Fund. That's what he says. From September 2015 to now, Mr. Deputy Speaker, we have approved 80 cases under the CLF at a cost of $25 million. So I just want the population to know the CLF is alive, up and running. But we have fast-tracked, we are now fast-tracking applications, because as you use the system more and more urgent cases come. So we now have some innovative fast-track measures. One recent case, it reached CLF on a Wednesday. It was approved by Friday. I sang it off on Friday. Air ambulance took the person up on Saturday. They had the surgery on Sunday, and then they were back home. Healthy, wealthy, and wise. That is the Children's Life Fund in operation. And I want to thank Dr. Maritza Finance publicly. And Mr. Deputy Speaker, the reason I want to thank Dr. Maritza Finance, and this is where I think the UNC should hang its heads in collective shame. They made such a political mess out of a case. Let the courts decide. Do you know what members of the board tell me? They are now scared to go out in public. They are being abused in public. The same Maritza Finance who was there under member for Barataria Sawa, who I left alone.
Your initial 45 minutes has expired. You have an additional 10. Care to avail? Proceed.
Thank you. The same Maritza Finance who was put there by Barataria Sawa, who I left there, is now despairing because of the ridicule they face in public, because the public is of the view that the PNM has cut out the Children's Life Fund. They are of the view, be it by the utterances of people opposite and in the other place, that we have something against the children of Trinidad and Tobago. So I want to publicly thank and stand with all those people at the Children's Life Fund for doing the same duty they did in 2012, in 2013, in 2014, 15, 16, and 17. It is pathetic and to be condemned the way those good people who are doing nothing more than national service have to be ridiculed in public. And you know what is worse? It is now making it difficult to recruit people to serve on that board. Because people are saying, why should I go on the CLF when it's a political pappy show?
And you kept the same people there.
And it's the same people. It's the same people. My God, let us have some sensibility about the issue.
Put country first for one.
Put country first. Put the children first. Be patriotic.
Rodney Charles want to learn it in a classroom.
The UNC needs to be condemned and condemned and condemned for the way they handled that particular case.
They are too wicked.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, the last thing on health I want to touch on before I go to my constituency is the successes we've been having with insect vector. Zika was a big issue last year. My colleague would have had to face down chikungunya. So what are the figures? Zika 2016, a total of confirmed between suspected, probable, and confirmed, and this is confirmed by lab tests. The figure is going to be much higher because not everybody got a lab test. Was 1,579 for 2016. 2017 to date, 499, but of that only 4 confirmed. CHIKV 2016, 104, 2017, 10. Dengue, and this is the important one, and the reason I want to draw a distinction between the numbers for Zika, CHIKV, and dengue is that all the evidence shows that once you are bitten and you get CHIKV, you are most likely immunized for life, so you can't get CHIKV twice. The symptoms may stay for life. Zika, the current evidence, whilst inconclusive, points to the fact that once you are bitten and you get Zika once, most likely you are immunized for life. So you can't put these rapid declines down to the successes of insect vector alone. But what you could do is look at dengue. Because in dengue, you have 2 types, serious hemorrhagic or none, and 4 serologies, A, B, C, and D, 4 different types. So you could be bitten and get dengue type 1. That only gives you some immunity for that one. You could still get type 2, you could still get type 3, you could still get type 4. So that's why I draw a distinction between Zika, chikungunya, where the evidence shows once you get it, you are immunized for life, but when dengue, it is not so. Whilst the statistics for dengue have been coming down gradually over time, and my colleague, former colleague, should be congratulated. He did some good work at IVCD. The past year has shown the most dramatic decrease in dengue. For 2016, we had 2,301 cases, which are suspected, probable, and confirmed. For 2017 to date, and we're in October, just 2 more months to go, we have 46. That is a huge, huge drop. Right? So I want to really thank Insect Vector. They are doing a wonderful job, and they are to be heartily congratulated. So as we try to change the paradigm in health, just like the paradigm in the national economy, I want to remind this country that in my opening statements I spoke about, let us take our own medicine, formulated for Trinidad and Tobago, by a route of administration we like. Because if we let the IMF come, their medicine is much more bitter, and we may not like the injection. Let us work together. Because as I say, if the IMF comes, the first thing they're going to do is say fire 20% of the civil service. That is thousands of people less seeking public transport. That is thousands of people less have a paycheck at the end of the month to go to the grocery, to spend money, to go to the hardware, to repair the house, and the economy will crash. This government actually borrowed money to pay civil servants this year. The Minister of Finance said so. We have gone through extraordinary lengths to keep people working, to keep our paycheck coming to you every month. So let us band together as one to see these times through. I want to thank my constituents of St. Joseph for having me here, and say in the past year, we have put up some serious water tanks in Cayman, Mount Hope Extension. We opened the St. Joseph Police Station. We opened the Mount Hope, Mount Lambert Community Center. We are soon going to turn this out for the Mike Tower Community Center, St. Anne's. That community has been waiting for a community center for about 30 years. We are going to do it. Thank you very much. We did some serious roadworks up in Mount Dore. We are going to have a WASA project in Spring Valley in Mount Dore. We did some road paving in Farm Road and Bangor. So to come, we have the Mike Tower Community Center. I think we have started some repairs in the Kirap Community Center. Thank you very much. One of the big interventions I did with the help of the Minister of Housing and Urban Development was to bring in the residents of the various HDC communities in contact with HDC officials. Because what happens as an MP, these people who occupy individual units come to you. So I told them, look, instead of you coming to me individually, let us have some panchayats. So we did some sessions at East Grove, Pioneer Drive, Sunrise Courts, and Mountain View Terrace to bring the residents and AGC closer together, so together they can work through their issues.
Member,
I want to thank
you have
you very much.
minutes.
Okay. I want to thank the Commissioner of Police. When the St. Joseph Police Station was moved, I made an application to have the old police station next to the community center on Abercrombie Street be used as a police youth club, and I want to thank them. The Police Youth Club in St. Joseph, first of its kind, is up and running. Very, very nice initiative. So, Mr. Deputy Speaker, these are the few words I had today. I hope that the population works with me as we seek to change the culture in the healthcare system, and I thank you for the opportunity.
I recognize the member for Barataria, Sanwan.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Let me first start by indicating that after reading the budget statement, I was at pains to determine what to speak about, because the Honourable Leader of the Opposition capably dealt with all matters of the budget that was done by the Minister of Finance. I also want to thank my colleagues who also in their own right and their own specialty and shadow ministries dealt with their aspects of the budget. Now, sometimes you have to thank different people. I would like to thank the Minister of Finance for such a budget. Because you see, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that budget is a budget that is going to propel us, the UNC, back into office. So I thank him for that. Now, I want to just clear up a couple of things. Before I go to health, when on the Minister of Health. The Minister of Health spoke for 55 minutes, and the only thought pattern that came across my mind is that, my God, we left a good foundation. He was able to use that foundation to do what he's doing today. And it was very, it was very good to see that the work that we did between 2010 and 2015 and moved the health center from where it was before that, into a position where the Honourable Minister, who has continued most of the projects that I started and developed it, is now glad to be, the Minister of Health doing what he's doing. And I want to thank you for looking at the titanium plates and the titanium screws and looking at that part of it. We were looking at the overall aspect of it, and we were dealing with C40, we were dealing with the non-farm items. We were changing the culture of that procurement model, because we also saw that there were deficiencies. And I will say something, Mr. Deputy Speaker, and it's for all the ministers. It takes about 2 years and a half sometimes to understand a ministry fully. And after that, you can move forward into different aspects. We were able to put things in place for the C40 drug procurement formulary. In fact, we started the development of the change of the formulary, and the Minister will tell you that. We also started the change of the tendering. Now, I've noticed, Minister, that you have kept the National Hospital Management Committee, which is excellent, because I put that in place to deal with the problems that were going on with procurement, goods and services in the RHAs. And I know initially you came and you were not happy with it, but I see you've kept it. And with that special purpose company in health, one could deal with health in a different manner. But while the Minister was speaking, the thought that was striking me, I wonder if I was in a different health sector. Because the RHAs, Mr. Deputy Speaker, is not performing as what they were supposed to perform, how they were supposed to perform. You see, I took an excerpt from the Welch report, and I'd like to quote it. The Welch report on page 37 lists the concerns of the RHAs. And the first one was the relationship with the RHAs. It's a mix of turbulence. In some instances, we're not seen to be taking responsibilities. HR practices violated, established positions and grant of leave, and at times we treated in an ad hoc manner. Now, the third part, the relationship, the signed MOU that we did between the Minister of Tertiary Education, the member for Chaguanas East, and myself, and COSTAT, was a MOU signed where the ancillary services, such as radiology, lab techs, etc., they were going to be put into the RHAs, paid a stipend in year 1, 2, 3, and 4, and have each year mentoring the other years as we move up. That has not been done. So when the Member of Parliament from Moruga Tableland and the Minister of Health said there's a shortage of 1,000 nurses, we started a nursing academy, the Member of Parliament for Chaguanas East when he was Minister of Tertiary Education, and supported by the Ministry of Health. However, seeing that there's 1,000 nurses, what we did at the Ministry of Health, and I see it's not mentioned anywhere, Mr. Deputy Speaker, we started a program called the Aids to Nursing Program. The Aids to Nursing Program was a program where you took somebody who had basically the caring consideration and practical nursing qualifications, brought them into the system and trained them at different levels to move up to regional health authority, to RN nurses. That has been discontinued, Mr. Deputy Speaker. And a lot of these nurses have been, these young people, have been pushed out into the society with nowhere to go. That would have taken care of the actual nursing pool. Now, when the member for Moruga Tableland indicated that there were 1,000 nurses deficient, in the system. That AIDS to nursing program was attacked by the Trinidad and Tobago Registered Nursing Association for being no standards, etc. But mind if I tell you, Mr. Deputy Speaker, 2 years ago, it surprised me that the Secretary for Health in England started a similar program with the same number of people doing the same thing with mentoring of nurses, of the qualifications of nurses, moving them up the ranks towards nursing RNs. So we were on the right track. Another thing I started was the nursing intern program, which a couple of people have graduated, where it gave the nurses a chance to get practical education and move forward. So we were looking at the nursing pool and the nursing action moving forward. Now, when the Minister of Health starts to speak about the quality of, and the cost factor of the titanium plates, may I say, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I understand what he's saying, I understand what he did, but I have found out that there are different quality coming out of different countries. And sometimes the quality of the plates and the quality of the screws and the quality of the hips are not equal in all aspects. Sometimes sacrificing for cheaper costs sacrifice quality. So I want the Minister to understand that. You have to look at it.
Thank you for giving way.
But excuse, I'll accept you from your seat, please.
Thank you for giving way. Honourable Member, as I said, we did the same plate, same brand, same spec, same manufacturer. So we are comparing like with like. Thank you.
I just brought it up just in case. So at least because what has happened in the past when they utilized various hip joints, there was a bit of litigation as compared to the movement of the hips, as compared to what. So now, the regional health authorities, right? The regional health authorities and the minister spoke about a linear, a linear accelerator for Northwest Regional Health Authority. That is all well and good. That was in the cards before we left, because what we were doing was building the St. James Radiotherapy Center while the Oncology Center was being put in place. There is a small subvention, I see, for the Oncology Center, but not in keeping what it's supposed to do. I would like to have found out more, and I hope the Minister of Finance could ask, where is the Oncology Center at this point in time? Because that Oncology Center was being done to promote a certain level of international accreditation of radiotherapy treatment and radiotherapy centers, that we could attract external people to that area. There was the development of a cyclotron, which was, that cyclotron would have been a machine, a piece of machinery for $60 million given by, I think, was Phoenix Gas, that it would have produced radionucleotides for export, as well as utilizing the radionucleotides to do PET-CT scanning in Trinidad where there are none, as well as for export. So that oncology center was designed and being done for medical tourism as well as local treatment. In that, there were 2 linear accelerators, there was a CyberKnife, there was an ultrasound for high-intensity focused ultrasound, and a whole host of other things. I've seen it mentioned in the Welsh report, which basically indicated that I don't think they understood the concept of what was happening. To understand the concept of a cyclotron, one has to understand nuclear medicine, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Now, when the Minister of Health spoke about the Cuba, and I'm very glad you call it Cuba Children's Hospital, by the way. You said that. If you look at the hand side, you said Cuba Children's Hospital. And when he started to speak about the Cuba Children's Hospital, it was the first standalone hospital in the country. So the member of Parliament for Sipari was not wrong. The Wendy Fitzwilliams wing is a wing in Eric Williams Medical Sciences Complex. That is what the Wendy Fitzwilliams. Whether the Wendy Fitzwilliams is doing what it's supposed to do on 87%, whatever it is, I'm glad. However, Mr. Deputy Speaker, no mention was made of pediatric gastroenterology, pediatric cardiology, pediatric nephrology, pediatric surgical techniques of a higher nature than the run-of-the-mill, pediatric urology, that is a specialty in its own right. Now, when we boast about the Children's Life Fund, doing and sending away a lot of children and approving fast, What about who learns, which one of our local doctor will learn as a result of that? None, Mr. Deputy Speaker. We were putting the Children's Hospital in place to bring down a certain level of excellence where senior practitioners and specialists from abroad would come to Trinidad and Tobago and do the surgeries in that institution, as well as teaching our young doctors and residents about the procedures that we were not doing here. That was the idea with that hospital. Not only medical tourism, it was going to be a teaching hospital. And if you look at the Welch report, they indicated everything that was there. Now, when the Minister of Health and the Minister of Finance 2 years ago said, we are going to open this with public-private partnership, I have been on record indicating that the public-private partnership, Mr. Deputy Speaker, will take 3 years or more to even hammer out the legal requirements. You cannot just wake up one morning and do a public-private partnership. It does not work like that. And a public-private partnership does not mean the public system gives you the thing and the private runs it for a profit. There is a whole host of legislation, litigation, of legislative methods. So I believe, no matter who you, I doubt the Minister of Finance or the Minister of Health will get somebody next year unless somebody really want to take it on for a profit. It's a very easy way that we had to open that center. You do the radiology first, you do the outpatient clinic second, you do the ward clinic third, you do the accident and emergency after you do the surgical operating theaters, and you bring it in. There is enough people in Trinidad and Tobago who have expressed interest working there. Now, I come to a number of doctors who don't have jobs. Approximately about, these are doctors who have done the internship, can't get a position in the RHA because there are no positions, and they have what they call temporary registration by the medical board. Temporary registration by the medical board, Mr. Deputy Speaker, means you have to work in a public institution to finish your requirements before you be allowed to go out. 3 years, 2 years, 3 years. I would like the minister to take this on board. The Medical Board Act does not speak about full or temporary registration. It speaks about registration and the approval by the medical board. These doctors have already done a year of internship. They're similar to the counterparts of University of the West Indies. However, the University of the West Indies doctors, they get full registration right after they finish. These doctors do not, so it's a discrimination that is occurring with these doctors. If they get full registration, Mr. Minister, rather than you having them in the public sector, they can be absorbed in the private sector and be trained there by senior specialists and senior movement, and that is what could be done. Until the medical board determines, gives them full registration, it will be illegal to have them in the private sector. And I go to another point, which I was hoping the minister would touch on. We have University of the West Indies, UTT. We have other hospitals, different hospitals, which he calls the legacy hospitals. But University of West Indies works in San Fernando, Mount Hope, and in Port of Spain to some extent, not in Sandy Grande Hospital. These hospitals are not internationally accredited. They have to be accredited by the examination bodies, and most of them have not been. That is why we have our own exams, University of West Indies exams. However, training of specialists in this country is determined by University of the West Indies, and they take a handful of specialists and they move them forward. If you drop out at any one of those year 1, 2, 3, or 4, that space remains vacant and nobody can fill it because you have to start in year 1. We were on the process of doing another system with UTT, where these hospitals, private, public, everyone, were going to belong to the specialization loop. And anybody could do a curriculum that is presented by the ACGME, which is the specialist units in the States, the Royal College of Medicine in England, and different international bodies, and where the specialization could take place through the public and private sector. Because, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I'll tell you, a lot of good doctors are in the private sector, don't work in the public sector because they're in no positions, and are willing and ready to teach. A lot of my friends are like that. So we could change the nature of the specialization, and the minister really didn't touch on it. Now, I would like him to at least think about it. Now, we talk about procurement. We talk about drug procurement. The minister said he has it down pat now. It's going to be better next year. But still, Mr. Deputy Speaker, there have been problems. There have been problems ongoing with obtaining simple pharmaceuticals. HIV and oncology drugs are very expensive drugs, and I'm very glad he's using PAHO for it, because we had started to put that in place before we left. The other part of it, we did. The other part of it, the normal run-of-the-mill tender process was done by NIPDEC. We had them on a month-to-month contract. Month-to-month contract, so the Ministry of Health would have developed its own whole system of supply chain distribution and management, because C40, and I see Welsh reporter said that C40, where it's located, how it's done makes no sense, and it has to be changed. That supply chain system was going to be run by the National Hospital Management Committee of the Ministry of Health, and distribution this way. Utilizing, guess what? Digitalization. The digital part of this country is not seen much in health. And in fact, I wanted to bring something here today. I forgot it. Where the level you have reached abroad is that you could put a device on your chest. By Bluetooth technology, you read it on your phone, and that could be sent via and shared internationally. That's the level digitalization has reached. The Couva Children's Hospital was earmarked for full paperless digitalization, where you would have no paper and only computer movement back and forth. We need to start looking at that in this system, and I would like the minister to think about telemedicine, where people could stay at home and they could speak to their doctors, their specialists, etc., be it in a central area or a nursing area or something, but they could, by means of telemedicine, modular apps, etc., move and speak to and get treatment this way. Because if you could upload an ECG of 12 leads, you could upload a pressure, you could upload sugar, you could upload, diabetic screening, you could upload everything, pulse oximetric, and also cardiac status. So you could stay at home and upload all these things, speak to a doctor, wherever he is, or a practical nurse, which I'll come to, and get your treatment sent that way without you leaving your house. This is where it's going. Now, the practical nurse, which is the nursing practitioner, that was catered to in the Nursing Personnel Act that we piloted. The nursing fraternity was supposed to use this nursing practitioner and specialization of nurses to get specialist nurses. However, that needs to come back to Parliament for affirmative resolution of the qualification of these nurse practitioners. I would ask the minister to see if he could fast forward that for the nurses, because they have been clamoring for this for close to about 15 years or more, and Jamaica has that. So that, it wasn't mentioned, and I just thought I would mention it. Another thing that was not mentioned was the National Health Insurance System. We have heard about National Health Insurance for 2 years in a row. National Health Insurance System is necessary for certain universal healthcare coverage. Nothing was said about it. I haven't seen anything in the budget for it. It is time that we start looking at it, because the health surcharge is not enough and the cost of healthcare is rising. If you are going to develop a healthcare structure, such as England or Canada, or a mixed package, you need to put things in place for that. So the National Health Insurance structure needs to be addressed. Now, I just want to talk a little bit about the NCD programs, and I'm so happy that the minister sees that as a very good thing. I'll tell you why. The minister, when I was minister, the IADB came and we sat down and wondered how can we deal with the problems of the non-communicable disease in Trinidad. And we came across with a plan to have a wellness program through Trinidad and Tobago using IDB funds and a system involved. It was a larger program than what has been done now because of the money constraints. We were going to deal with the full aspect of NCDs with wellness centers throughout Trinidad and Tobago and develop of that. The minister now and the minister of planning at that time, the one member for Caroni Central, we discussed it and went to the IDB and we signed off on it for the NCD program. And I am extremely happy to see that is continuing because, as I always mention, government come, government go. But the continuity for the people of Trinidad and Tobago is very important. The non-communicable diseases in this country, Mr. Deputy Speaker, is a serious problem. I was hoping to see something in the budget about some tax on sugary drinks, heavy sugar drinks, some tax on fast foods, which cause the problems of the NCDs, as well as the sugar and oils. Unfortunately, nothing was touched. But however, diesel prices, etc., was touched on to create a certain level of hardship for the general population. If you were to, a lot of countries have started to tax sugary items, sugar drinks, as well as the fast food industry. And there is proof that you take that money and you put it into a pool to give it to the Ministry of Health, because that is where the problem occurs eventually. That in itself would assist in taking care of the cost factor of the NCD problem. You see, Mr. Deputy Speaker, for some strange reason, the sugar lobby in the United States, in sugar lobby in Trinidad and Tobago, and who runs that sugar and fast food lobby seems to be untouchables. Now, it is important that we start thinking along those lines, because when you see children, when we started the program, and the same Maritza Finance did it, we did it in my early tenure, where we looked at children who were coming to the clinics and the ones who were overweight. And Mr. Deputy Speaker, we found that these children at the age of 5 and 7 had type 2 diabetes, high cholesterol, and hypertension. That is what kept us moving. And what they were doing was dietary. It was a full dietary problem. They were eating too much of sugar, too much of fast foods, too much of monosodium glucose. I think there should be something in this country to outlaw or find a way to outlaw MSG or make people aware of it, that it be put in the food. It's an excitotoxin, and it creates what they call a food addiction. It creates full food addiction, worse than heroin. Sugar is now saying that it's worse than heroin on the level of addiction. So, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that needs to be looked at. It wasn't mentioned. When we were in office, we got hit with chikungunya, dengue to a great extent, and we put a plan in place with the insect vector, with the new insect vector complex, and insect vector movement with the local government system, as well as the public health inspectors. We started off by going to these abandoned lots, people's houses, and it was really a good system working with both the public sector as well as the homeowner and the corporations. We were able to basically indicate to people that the problem with dengue and chikungunya and Aedes aegypti was a problem of dirtiness, nastiness. What you're doing is causing a problem. People bought into it, and I'm very glad the minister is reaping the fruits of that, and I'm so happy. Now, am I talking? Oh, all right. As I know, what I would like to speak about.
You're going fine.
I'm trying my best to address the chair without going that way, Mr. Deputy Speaker. I understand you're very strict in that chair, much more stricter than the actual speaker itself. All right, what I would like to speak about, the minister didn't mention about the opening of the health offices. Health offices, we started opening them after hours and some 24 hours. But I will tell you something. I'm glad a member for Diego Martin West is here. And I would like to look at it and see if we could prod the Minister of Health to do something. The Carenage Health Facility was built as a standalone facility to do emergency services on a 24-hour basis. It has everything in it. It has ultrasound, x-rays, everything. I even got the car park with the rebirth house moved to Port of Spain. Well, you and me. Yeah, you, both of us. The thing about it is that when I pass on a weekend and I see it closed, Mr. Deputy Speaker, it really pains me. And when I see the CDA wants to put an emergency center in Chagaramas, it makes no sense. That building, as it is, could take care of every emergency problem on that Northwest Peninsula and decrease the amount of people going to St. James. Thank you. Because I really, that was done on that. It also, and the Member of Parliament for Diego Martin West, after that was going to stabilize patients, and with a sea ambulance, move them out to somewhere by the docks so they could get an ambulance straight to Port of Spain without going through that one traffic if there that level of stabilization is needed. I still think it's a good idea, and I still think we need something in this country because we have a high oil producing country to have what they call a sea ambulance and manned by the Coast Guard, because it is necessary, because the Northwest Peninsula, that's where a lot of activities takes place. Mr. Deputy Speaker, if anybody, God forbid, has to move very fast to a center for care, rapid care and stabilization, they will die before they reach Port of Spain because of the one in, one out and the amount of traffic. So that is the reason we have that Coronel Health Facility for stabilization, emergency services, and a sea ambulance right over the road to take them to a bigger center. Because in the golden hour, the golden hour is what's important in emergency services. And I'm very glad sometimes the minister says that, you see, we have the ambulance, there's no problem with the ambulances. You see, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I'm very glad he says that, because when we were faced with the problems of ambulance movement in Trinidad and Tobago, we were able to put something in place where the ambulance providers, they would take the risk of bringing the ambulance down, more ambulances, as well as training paramedical rather than just the run-of-the-mill worker, paramedical trainers, where they could take care of people on the spot. So we put that in place, and it seems to be working quite well, because I see the ambulance moving back and forth. And I understand that the paramedical training is ongoing, and for that I want to thank the National Ambulance Board, whoever it is, for continuing that. And I see that you've got a subvention for them, the authority. You see, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I saw it, that if I could save somebody a life by means of being on target, rather than picking up a sick person and moving them to an institution, losing that golden hour is where most people die, then I would have accomplished what I set out to do. That is because in Trinidad and Tobago, too many people die on the spot. An ambulance will pick them up and move, but they will die by the time they reach the hospital. That's what they call the golden hour. And I think a lot of more emphasis should be placed on that area. I was going to bring that device where you could take the heart and all that is part of the whole golden hour telemedicine. You see, Mr. Deputy Speaker, the honorable political leader gave me full leeway when I was a Minister of Health with my ideas to try to bring this thing together. And when we did it in such a manner, initially, I remember walking into the Ministry of Health, and they were buying hardware, and they were buying everything else for information technology throughout the system. And I indicated to them there's something called a cloud coming, and nobody would believe it, but today the cloud is a matter of fact. So we need to use the cloud services as with medical technology to move things in the direction that we are trying to do it. Now, the legacy hospitals in this country, Mr. Deputy Speaker, are not internationally accredited. The Couva Hospital was built, Cuba Children's Hospital was built according to international standards for accreditation. So if the Minister of Health is building also the Arima Hospital and the Point 14 Hospital are being built along the international accreditation standards, you will never hardly get accreditation approval for Port of Spain, San Fernando, maybe Eric Williams if you brief it up a little bit. So I would suggest to the minister, rather than making the tertiary level hospitals, the legacy hospitals, make the new hospitals the specialist standalone centers, because they will attract international patients and you get international insurance premiums being paid for it. If you do it for the non-accredited centers, then the insurance will not pay for that. So you could do a medical tourism that way with the new hospitals. Now, as I touch on medical tourism, Mr. Deputy Speaker, Tobago, the Scarborough Regional Hospital, was done with educational tourism in mind. When the PNM started it, we completed it, the Scarborough Hospital. But however, it was lacking an MRI center, a cath lab center, as well as a radiotherapy linear accelerator. We were able to put that in the MRI and the cath lab. It's working when I checked it last time. The radiotherapy center was not done as yet. The whole idea behind that, Mr. Deputy Speaker, you're doing Sandals. Sandals the Sandals group, they take over a system if you've ever been to Sandals. If you've ever been to Sandals, Mr. Deputy Speaker, you should go. Just a look. They cater to couples. However, when you go to Sandals, you arrive in the airport, you are picked up by a Sandals bus. You are taken to the Sandals hotel where you sign in and you stay there. You spend 3 days, 5 days, how much days you want to spend there. But everything is kept inside Sandals. You could buy jewelry, you could buy shirts, you could buy everything. You eat there, you play there, whatever it is. You do hardly ever get out unless you say, I want to go out. You see, Mr. Deputy Speaker, the people of Tobago will benefit with employment. Now, if the people of Tobago do not have the level of expertise of hospitality, Sandals will move them out and bring in their own, because that's part of what the requirements are, and that's what they do. And it's a standalone area with tax-free incentives, etc., giving you the indication they're going to take care of a lot. Taxi drivers suffer, the other external tax drivers, everybody else suffer. Some get tour operators, but most things is done Sandals-wise. Now, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I would like to propose that the Tobago House of Assembly or my member of Tobago East look at the Scarborough Regional Hospital for educational tourism, which is an offshore medical school. Offshore medical schools in Dominica, in St. Martin, in St. Lucia, they have a full city of opportunities. And St. Vincent, and all the students come from America, India, and they bring money with them. They turn over the economy, the groceries, the taxis, the tour operators, everyone. So I am indicating that the Minister of Health fell short on not talking about educational tourism. People tend to talk about medical tourism. Medical tourism, Mr. Deputy Speaker, is not easy to do. Educational tourism is easier to do because you attract specializations, you attract students, you attract everyone to an area, and then you could start your medical tourism. So I am looking at I would like the Minister of Finance to look at something like that for income and revenue generation. Now, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I just want to say a little bit about the other parts of the budget, but just one other thing on health. We have the capacity to produce a lower infant mortality and a lower maternal mortality rates. However, What we are lacking in this country is a proper neonatal intensive care unit. That was earmarked for next to the center, the women's hospital. So the Minister of Health said nothing about that, nothing about a burns and trauma unit. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the IDB and the Minister of Planning at the time, the member for Caroni Central, spoke about diagnostic centers for Trinidad and Tobago with public-private partnerships. Those diagnostic centers are standalone centers with the private sector for MRI, CT scan, ultrasounds, and you name it, lab services, standalone rather than overloading the hospital system. So, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that was not spoken about. I also want to ask the Minister, I had to be Minister of Finance now, why is it the subventions for Northwest Regional Health Authority was cut by 123 million, that of the Eastern Regional Health Authority cut by 63 million, that of Southwest Regional Health Authority 138 million, and also the North Central 138, sorry, and Southwest 118 million. If you cut these, if you make that such a drastic cuts, there must be a reason. I hope the Finance Committee, we could get some answers on that. Mr. Dev, how much time do I have?
You have 10 minutes of your initial time.
Okay, so I have 20 minutes.
And then?
Okay, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I just want to touch on something that the young people have been speaking about in my constituency. Colorado, Mr. Deputy Speaker, Colorado has decriminalized marijuana. And Colorado has taken that, they have experienced a surge of tourists into their system. So too Jamaica. The Jamaica balance of payments, it's rising with that tourist input. The decriminalization of the small amounts of marijuana lends itself to tourism. Colorado has produced scholarships in such an extent. Now, is it time that we look at it before the bus passes out? Most of the smaller islanders are looking at decriminalizing small amounts. Now, there's medical marijuana, there's different marijuana. I would like the member for San Fernando West to look at it, because I know for a fact that there are many people in remand yard who had one joint or small amounts of marijuana who are still languishing in there because of the legal aspect of what marijuana has done. Mr. Deputy Speaker, it can be used as a revenue generation tool if we need to do it. The same country that had the war on drugs has now legalized it, which was America. So why don't we look at it and produce our tourist aspect? Now, I'm not indicating that we need to have large amounts and trafficking, but recreational use and medical marijuana use. Tobago is also ripe for what they call women's and men addiction centers. And old Scarborough Hospital was earmarked for a rehab addiction center. So once again, Ms. Tobago East, that was earmarked for that. And everything was in place, but the Tobago House of Assembly can run with that, because they're the ones, I think, own the land. So those are some ideas on the health aspect of it. I just want to throw out an idea on the $100,000 incentive for people to build houses. Now, the Minister of Housing is now giving out is taking 25% of what the value of the land of squatting. Why don't we consider giving the people the land to build, find out, see how they build their houses, and when they're finished building the houses, in a group of 4, give them the $100,000 to start to build their houses, rather than giving the person who's building the houses. I know my friend from Tabaki might like the idea, but still, giving the people the $100,000 as a grant to start building their houses, and at the end of the day, they will build better houses than somebody for the same value. It's something to look at. You see, Mr. Deputy Speaker, people could build their houses for less money, get the $100,000 incentive, and build a complex of 4 in the same manner. Also, the member for Caroni Central, when he was Minister of Planning, he had a policy of tongue and country changes. And I've seen no one mention it. Minister from Planning, Aruka Maloney, if you're speaking, if you could speak about it, think about this. Where the policy was the higher rises, smaller lots, and more stories in Port of Spain and certain parts of the city. I don't know where that policy has gone so far. Also, it's a nightmare to get anything done in tongue and country. It needs to be changed. Maybe a board or committee needs to be done. Now, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I just want to touch on something. You see, yesterday, when the member for Port of Spain South was speaking, I'm very glad I was here because it touched on something very close to me. She used to sit here in the front here as the chief whip. Sorry, not she, the member. And I'm sorry the member for Diego Martin West has left. The member for Port of Spain South fought tooth and nail in those days. And I was here between 2010 to 2015. No matter what was said about the PNM, she got up and defended it. And she brought that back to me yesterday, which I had forgotten. And I remember the honourable member in the lowest level part time of the leader of the opposition, Dr. Rowley at that time, fighting tooth and nail. And I said to myself yesterday when she was speaking, she stood up there and defended the PNM after what has happened to her. No, relax, let me finish. She stood up there and defended the PNM. And I said to myself, had it been me, I would find it hard to do that. And she was chastised for something.
Correcting yourself after the she versus the member.
The honourable member was chastised, lost her ministry for something that she should not have been done to her. Because I just want to say that the member of Parliament for Port of Spain South, I want to thank you for your intervention yesterday. It brought home to me a certain point, the need to be strong for your party. Because the member, could have walked and didn't. So I just want to say that after her contribution yesterday, I believe that what was done was admirable. The other thing, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I want to touch on before I sit. What I want to Mr. Deputy Speaker, you were not around, but 2010 to 2015, the person who built this complex, who built the Hyatt, who built the educational towers, the custom house, the fountains, government was the leader of the PNM, Mr. Patrick Manning. I always had great respect for Mr. Manning, and it did hurt me when he had to sit down at the other end in that area, after he lost the election and he was sent out of Balize House. What I'm saying, what I'm saying, Mr. I'm coming to some point.
Oh, one sec. Right, I would have given you certain leeway just now with regards to Port of Spain South. I want you to tie in what you're saying with regards to the budget 2018. Thank you.
The budget is being done in the institution that he built. We have been here for 7 years. It is just fitting that this waterfront complex be called after Patrick Manning. That is all I'm saying. And that's why I'm tying it in. So, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I just want to touch on my constituency. The only part of my constituency I want to touch on, because it's the part, and I want the Minister of Education to listen. For too long, the Samoa Boys Girls Primary School has been languishing. The children are going up to Tunapuna, and it's not being done. I just want the Minister of Education to please do that for the children before this year is over, because they experience severe hardship. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker, and I want to thank the members for listening so intently, and I do hope that what I say will bear fruit in the future. Thank you.
Member for Tobago East.
Thank
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, before I go into the meat of my contribution, I want to reassure my very honourable friend for Barataria Samoan that most of the measures he referred to pertaining to medical tourism, educational tourism for Tobago, they're actively being pursued by our Secretary for the Division of Health, Wellness and Family Development. So rest assured that Tobago is indeed heading in the right direction under this new PNM administration. Madam Speaker, as a child, I would have had cause to make somewhat regular trips to the doctor. And one thing I learned early on is that a good doctor will never administer medication without first examining the patient. This government, Madam Speaker, like a good physician, has evaluated the social and economic conditions of our beloved country and is now ready to administer the relevant course of treatment that will set us on the path to recovery. Madam Speaker, all medications have associated side effects, but ultimately, they all bring some measure of relief to a patient. Our nation is finally in the hands of a team of physicians with the skills, determination, and character to administer the bitter pill that will bring healing and restoration. Madam Speaker, for those Trimbigonians who listen to the diatribe of those on the other side and fall into a state of despair, I urge them to hold fast to the reassurances of Jeremiah chapter 11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. Madam Speaker, the measures presented by the Honourable Minister of Finance filled me with hope and reassured me that indeed Trinidad and Tobago has a bright future ahead. The budget statement demonstrated our government's commitment towards shifting paradigms and spreading the burden of adjustment as we work towards Vision 2030. Our Vision 2030 policy framework requires that each and every one of us as individuals, regardless of our political affiliation, make some difficult but necessary adjustments if we are to achieve the positive outcomes we wish to enjoy in our social and economic circumstance. Madam Speaker, I'm resolute in my belief that this PNM government will continue to display sound understanding and effective governance in these difficult times and safely see us through this period of adjustment. We are not working towards the next election, Madam Speaker. We are working towards restoring social and economic stability so that our children and our children's children will have a better quality of life. We are brave enough to make tough decisions because we have a clear vision for our country. Our backs are broad enough to take the blows, and we are willing to take the blows, Madam Speaker, because we know in time to come, Trinidad and Tobago will understand, and future generations of Trimbigonians will thank us. Madam Speaker, I extend sincere, heartfelt congratulations to the Minister of Finance and the Minister of Planning and Development and the staff of their respective ministries for a well-crafted budget. I congratulate my colleagues for the ability to do more with less and for doing their part in helping to take us further along this vision of 2030. I congratulate the Honourable Prime Minister for his astute leadership. He has truly demonstrated, Madam Speaker, that he is the man for this season. Madam Speaker, I thank all the permanent secretaries, public servants, and staff across all ministries, and especially those who work in the various units of the Office of the Prime Minister for their hard work and the contribution they are making towards restoring Trinidad and Tobago. I also extend gratitude to the staff of the Parliament for their unwavering support. Madam Speaker, I'm ever mindful of the fact that I'm privileged to be here by virtue of the support of the people of Tobago East. So please indulge me as I address my constituents. I wish to reaffirm my commitment to the people of Tobago East, that I will work with them and for them as we strive to bring meaningful development to our constituency. Madam Speaker, I live and raise my children in rural Tobago East, so my constituents' challenges are my challenges. Their fears are my fears, and the aspirations are my aspirations. This drives me, Madam Speaker, to be always fair, honest, and objective in my representation of the needs and the aspirations of the people of Tobago East. I wish to take this opportunity to thank all the members of my constituency office staff. I want to thank my small team for their hard work and their service to the people of Tobago East. And I want to reassure them that by God's grace, we will continue to find the measures and the means to continue to serve Tobago East effectively. Madam Speaker, in the last fiscal period, I would have continued my roving office day under the theme, Make Full Use of Your MP. I've visited Hope, Charlottesville, Palatuve, Roxborough, and Goodwood. I would like to thank all those organizations that came on board with me on those roving office days to provide service for the people of Tobago East. I wish to thank the Tobago Regional Health Authority for sending the nurses out to do health screening, Eastern Credit Union, Guardian Life, Republic Bank, and Crime Stoppers for always being ready and willing to serve the people of Tobago East during my public days. Madam Speaker, we partnered with the Heliconia Foundation and hosted a free legal clinic in the Argyle Community Center. In addition, as MP, I partnered with a host of various organizations at the community level to ensure that Tobago East always had meaningful sporting, health and wellness initiatives and other initiatives to bring meaningful development to the people. I understand and I appreciate that development starts and ends with the people at the center. Madam Speaker, there are a number of things that we could feel proud of in Tobago East, and I want to acknowledge some of them. Madam Speaker, I celebrate the upgrade works at Northside Road, Mason Hall, the ongoing upgrade works at Belmont Farm Road, coastal protection works ongoing along the Windward Main Road, the significant work done to curtail erosion at Hanging Down, the commissioning of the long-awaited Argyle Strip Mall. Madam Speaker, I want to thank TNTech for the infrastructural works they are doing to bring electricity to people in Lamy, and also WASA for the work they are doing in Charlottesville to upgrade the water supply there. Madam Speaker, I want to congratulate the Minister of National Security in his absence. The construction of the Roxborough Police Station has started, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the member for Couva North asked about agricultural roads. I can attest to the fact that a number of agricultural roads are being developed in Tobago East. Just about 2 weeks ago, I would have visited a new one that will connect to Roxborough and Louis-Dor-Dallaford via what we call Fox, Madam Speaker. As a child growing up, that was high forest. So when I was able to drive partway, along that road, I felt really proud because I recognized that our government is working. The Tobago House of Assembly is indeed servicing the people of Tobago East. Madam Speaker, I want to make mention to the expansion going on to the Hope Anglican School, the extended operating hours at our walking centers, and the upgrade of the Studley Park Quarry under new management. Madam Speaker, just recently, the start was turned for the construction of the new Belgarden Community Center. This is something that people of Belgarden have been waiting on for years, and I want to commend the THA for really working to bring change and development to Tobago East. Madam Speaker, in 2018, I want to assure the people of Tobago East the development will continue. Dwight York Stadium, even though it serves all of Tobago, resides in Tobago East. And I want to thank the Minister of Sport and thank the Minister of Finance for the $5 million allocated for the refurbishment of Dwight York Stadium. Yes. Madam Speaker, I am truly, truly grateful. Madam Speaker, additional wells are being drilled by WASA. There's one plan for Roxborough. Madam Speaker, in 2018, we have the construction of the Mariah Fire Station coming along, also the upgrade of the Roxborough Fire Station. We also have TNTech committed to improving street light and access to electricity in a number of our communities. Madam Speaker, I want to thank the Minister of Works. We have had problems with bus service in Tobago East, particularly around the northeastern side of Tobago East. There's a firm commitment that by the end of this year, we will have a new bus to suit our terrain, and this will bring a measure of relief to the people of Shallerville, Lansome, Palativale, Castara, and for that I'm proud and I'm truly grateful. Madam Speaker, the road ahead may present obstacles, but I wish to reassure my constituents, if we continue to work together, we will be able to transform Tobago East, one community at a time. Madam Speaker, I now want to turn my attention to Central Administrative Services, Tobago. Madam Speaker, earlier this year, we would have commissioned the new Met building. This facility would have been started under one administration, continued under another, and it was completed under this PNM government, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, for World Met Day, we were able to facilitate hundreds of school children from across Tobago. When this facility is fully upgraded, Madam Speaker, and when we have all equipment in, the Met building would be able to contribute towards making our airport, the new one of international standard, and will contribute towards the diversification thrust. Madam Speaker, in 2016-2017, we had an allocation of $500,000 for our NGO, for NGO grants. Madam Speaker, we were able to facilitate 19 non-governmental organizations, 6 community-based organizations, and 5 faith-based organizations. A total of 30 organizations were assisted in their social development programs through the Office of the Prime Minister, Central Administrative Services, Tobago. Madam Speaker, we have a facility that allows for patients traveling to Trinidad and a companion to receive the full cost of airfare to Trinidad if they are referred for medical treatment not available in Tobago. During the fiscal period, 5 persons would have accessed this facility. We hope that through our public sensitization and education efforts, more Tobagonians who are in need of this facility will be able to access it. In keeping with our mandate to partner with the THA to facilitate human capital development, we provided job opportunities during the summer period, this July-August holiday period, Madam Speaker, for a number of tertiary level and sixth form students. Madam Speaker, we facilitated 14 tertiary level students and 7 sixth formers. A total of 21 young Tobagonians were able to learn essential skills while earning towards their school expenses. Madam Speaker, on Republic Day, for the first time in decades, we were able to facilitate the Republic Day parade in Roxborough. Madam Speaker, tears literally came to my eyes when I saw the uniform crews marching through Roxborough, because I know little children would have experienced the joy that I felt as a little girl every Republic Day to see your friends, your family in the uniforms parading proudly through Roxborough. The Central Administrative Services was able to do that for the people of Tobago East, and I'm thankful. Madam Speaker, we partnered with the Ministry of Agriculture and the Tobago House of Assembly to facilitate the surveillance exercise for the citrus greening disease in Tobago, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we are aware that it was identified, and we have the commitment that the Tobago House of Assembly, the Ministry of Agriculture, and the Office of the Prime Minister will continue to work to ensure that this particular disease does not eradicate our citrus crops in Tobago. Madam Speaker, we also partner with the Arthur Locke Graduate School of Business in introducing the Masters in Institutional Innovation and Effectiveness in Tobago. Madam Speaker, the Office of the Prime Minister, Central Administrative Services, is working hand in hand with all stakeholders to ensure that Tobago continues to have meaningful and sustainable development. Madam Speaker, please permit me now to turn my focus to the important area of HIV and AIDS coordination. The national response to HIV and AIDS is multi-sectoral and requires all hands and all sectors to be committed to achieving the end of the HIV epidemic by 2030. Since my last budget presentation, the National AIDS Coordinating Committee, or NAC, has developed and has been implementing their work plan. I wish to highlight some of these critical areas in which a NAC has been called upon to achieve. NAC convened 2 NGO meetings, one in Trinidad and one in Tobago. These meetings have resulted in improved appreciation for the need for NGOs to collaborate and work together as opposed to operating in silos. We are using the information gathered to develop capacity building plans for civil society partners. For fiscal 2017, a total of $76,000 in grants was distributed to NGOs for activities implemented for World AIDS Day in 2016 and for carnival sensitization and awareness programs in 2017. Madam Speaker, prevention is being approached through a combination of biomedical interventions, such as the promotion of uptake of HIV testing, condom use promotion for adults, as well as through behavioral and structural interventions. Madam Speaker, the thrust of the NAC is to coordinate the implementation of programs targeting of vulnerable populations. We have implemented a short carnival campaign targeting the general population. This multimedia campaign reached more than 100,000 persons through the use of television and radio ads, electronic billboards, print, and social media. The NAC has collaborated with other key partners, such as the Ministry of Education, civil society organizations, and our development partners in the UN system, UNICEF and UNFPA, in the rollout of the Health and Family Life Education curriculum in government secondary schools. The NAC was also able to provide financial and technical assistance to support the rollout and implementation of the Health and Family Life Education activities throughout both Trinidad and Tobago. Madam Speaker, as I listen to colleagues on the other side, one thing I recognize that we are guilty of something on this side, Madam Speaker, and we are guilty of not boasting enough of what we have been able to achieve. Madam Speaker, to date, there have been 3 workshops, 2 in Trinidad and 1 in Tobago, with at least 207 teachers trained in 69 schools in Trinidad and principals being sensitized. The NAC Secretariat has also commenced a review of the Human Rights Desk, which would result in a model or mechanism for reporting on cases of HIV-related discrimination and providing redress. The NAC Secretariat has updated the National HIV/AIDS Monitoring and Evaluation Plan in collaboration with key stakeholders such as CAFA, the Ministry of Health, the Central Statistical Office, and NGOs. The Secretariat will continue to work on the finalization of the HANOS HIV/AIDS online NGO system. Other achievements include the compilation of statistical bulletin on the trends and statistics of HIV and AIDS for the period 2010 to 2015. A separate fact sheet has also been prepared by the Secretariat as a request coming out of the NGO forum held in Tobago. Madam Speaker, in terms of defining a national HIV policy and providing sectoral guidance, NAC has been successful in mobilizing technical resources from our strategic development partner, USAID, who is assisting in the development of this very critical policy, which should have significant implications for not only persons living with HIV and AIDS, but also persons affected, that is, our key and marginalized populations, including our youth and women. Other significant achievements in the policy arena include the launch of the National HIV Policy, which the NAC Secretariat had the opportunity to contribute towards its finalization. In this regard, Madam Speaker, I wish to congratulate Minister Baptiste Primus and her team at her ministry for this very significant achievement. The NAC Secretariat and the Policy Unit have also commenced the adaptation of the National HIV Workplace Policy for the Office of the Prime Minister. It is expected that by first quarter of 2018, the Office of the Prime Minister would have its draft HIV workplace policy. Madam Speaker, on the issue of identifying training gaps and building capacity for stakeholders to mount an effective and sustained response to HIV and AIDS, NAC has undertaken 3 capacity-building activities. The first activity was an orientation for the NAC members who are new to the field of HIV and AIDS. NAC also facilitated 2 additional capacity-building activities in the areas of advocacy and leadership development, as well as treatment, adherence and nutrition, which targeted persons living with HIV and AIDS and their support networks. Madam Speaker, in fiscal 2018, NAC would focus on the following: policy development activities, which will include finalization of the national HIV and AIDS policy, finalization of the NGO funding policy, and the Office of the Prime Minister's HIV workplace policy. In terms of prevention strategies, we will conduct, development, and implement a behavioral change campaign targeting risk reduction behaviors. We review and implement the behavioral change communication strategy targeting marginalized youth. We'll have community-based interventions to promote awareness to address the structural deterrents of HIV, such as poverty, gender-based violence, stigma, and discrimination. Madam Speaker, we'll also focus on peer education. Madam Speaker, the NAC really started operating sometime around February, and this small team would have been able to achieve quite a lot, even in the midst of us having one permanent secretary being transferred to a ministry, then dying, and always having different people come into the secretariat. They have always worked diligently to ensure that our mandate is achieved. Madam Speaker, in terms of patient care and treatment, NAC will focus on the establishment of a multidisciplinary psychosocial support team. There will be continued capacity building for persons living with HIV, their support networks, NGOs, and HIV coordinators. NAC will also undertake an evaluation of the National Strategic Plan for HIV and AIDS 2013 to 2018. Madam Speaker, as I move off from NAC, I want to once again to commend the team, to thank all the permanent secretaries and the staff at the Secretariat and the committee for their hard work, their diligence, and their service to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Madam Speaker, I now turn my attention to matters pertaining to gender and child affairs. Madam Speaker, I noted the issues raised by the members for Siparia, Arapuch West, Couva North, Kumutu Manzanilla pertaining to the state of women and children in this country. While your concerns are legitimate, I wish to reassure the honourable members as well as the public that projects we are undertaking at the Office of the Prime Minister and across ministries are aimed at society-wide behavioral change. We want to enable people to provide for themselves so that their needs and rights, from housing to decent work, to security, to education, are realized and effectively and continuously guaranteed to the people of this country. At the Office of the Prime Minister, there are programs that target men and women in keeping with their different needs and their current environment. Men and boys need to be empowered and educated simultaneously so that they do not hurt women. Women and girls need to be empowered and educated simultaneously to ensure that they are self-sufficient and so that they can contribute to our development in whichever ways they choose. Our children need the right policy framework in place to guarantee their safety and well-being. This is what we are working towards at the Office of the Prime Minister, Gender and Child Affairs. Madam Speaker, let me focus on our children, the most vulnerable group in our society. In terms of our large community residences, I wish to report the following achievements. The establishment of a Memorandum of Understanding between the University of Trinidad and Tobago and the St. Michael's Schools for Boys. UTT provided remedial academic development in mathematics and English. Additionally, an agripreneurship program took place. This program included the propagation of crops along with lessons in entrepreneurship. Madam Speaker, a few weeks ago, I got a picture from one of the workers at St. Michael's School for Boys, and they had beds of lettuce, healthy lettuce, and I felt really happy because I recognize that even though some of our boys may be in institutions, that we have not given up on them. We did not lose hope, Madam Speaker, but we are providing them with an opportunity to build the capacity so when they transition out, they will have options, Madam Speaker, to be able to sustain themselves. And I want to commend UTT for partnering with us. I want to commend the boys at St. Michael's for taking the opportunity to develop and to grow and to learn. Madam Speaker, even though we do not boast, we have been working surely and steadfastly to improve Trinidad and Tobago and to improve circumstances for all. Madam Speaker, a memorandum of understanding was developed with the Ministry of Community Development, Culture and the Arts to ensure quality care at the St. Michael's School for Boys. Sessions were held with staff members to develop the program, and I want to thank my colleague, the member for St. Anne's East. Madam Speaker, a cost-per-child payment system was implemented to ensure that all children have access to quality care in every community residence in Trinidad and Tobago. Equitable payment was offered to all community residences. 24 community residences with 381 children accessed this funding, and the other community residences are in the process of meeting the necessary criteria. Madam Speaker, in 2017, we focused on building the capacity of persons to care for these vulnerable children. A 9-month community residence train-the-trainer program was held in collaboration with the Children's Authority based on research on the training needs and gaps within community residences. 100 trainers were trained, who in turn trained staff within their community residences. A total of 41 residents were involved in this training, and over 17 topics were covered. Madam Speaker, a 3-month caregiver training program was held in collaboration with the Trinidad and Tobago Registered Nurses Association to provide caregivers with the needed skills for employment within community residences. Madam Speaker, oftentimes we hear the horror stories coming out, but we don't hear the good news. What we recognize, Madam Speaker, is that not anybody could work in a community residence or work with children. In order for us to have the right outcomes, we need to have the right people in those spaces. So we have been building capacity. We have been empowering our employees so that they in turn can impact meaningfully on the lives of the children who, by no virtue of their choice, are forced to live in community residences, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, a total of 31 caregivers were trained and prepared for employment within community residences. Madam Speaker, at the graduation ceremony, in my address to the caregivers, I made reference to St. Jude's home, just to remind them that when we are working with children, we can't just look at it as dollars and cents or just making some money. What we have to look at it as though we are creating future leaders and transforming Trinidad and Tobago for the better. Madam Speaker, I have a very close relationship with those girls at St. Jude's. I actually call them my girls. And this year, they had the opportunity to come to Tobago for a short time during the August vacation period, because the girls were able to do well. Some of them do well in their CXCs, Madam Speaker. So we hear those on the other side talking about children who run away and children who doing this, children who doing that. But hear the good news, hear the good stories, hear about the girls who, despite the fact that they are institutionalized, are still able to do their CXCs and do well. Hear the good news about the girls and even some of the boys who do the SCA and pass to the prestige schools in Trinidad. Yes, Madam Speaker. We have been working quietly, but we have been working diligently. Madam Speaker, in terms of work done on the National Child Policy, I'm happy to report that 14 focus groups comprising of adults and children were held in Trinidad as well as Tobago. A data analysis report was completed on these focus groups. A consultant was recruited, aided by UNICEF, to draft the policy incorporating the voices of our nation's children, and a first draft of the National Child Policy was completed, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, our child abuse awareness initiatives were far-reaching. 200,000 anti-child abuse text messages with reporting contact numbers were sent to mobile devices throughout the nation. And I want to thank B Mobile and TSTT for partnering with the Office of the Prime Minister on this initiative. We installed 9 anti-child abuse messages on 9 buses nationwide, featuring powerful anti-abuse paintings done by children. And, Madam Speaker, all these different paintings, when I looked at them, some of them you saw images that would evoke emotions such as fear and sadness, but in some of the paintings, you saw depictions of images that would evoke hope and pride and joy. Madam Speaker, all children in Trinidad and Tobago are truly gifted, and they just need the right environment and the support of all of us to be able to achieve their fullest potential. Madam Speaker, we continue to work on our National Children's Registry. The National Children's Registry is essentially a government data management and sharing system that will capture and securely hold information on all our children. To date, the design phase has been completed and is awaiting final input and approval to begin the implementation and building phase. The Office of the Prime Minister, in collaboration with the Ministries of Health and Social Development and Family Service, and the Office of the President, initiated the first parent caregiver skills training program for families of children with developmental disorders and delays. I remember one of my colleagues on the other side said that we weren't doing enough for children with developmental disorders and children with disabilities, but we have been doing the work. We have been partnering with all segments, including the Office of the President. 14 master trainers were trained by representatives from the World Health Organization and Autism Speaks in August 2017. Madam Speaker, rollout of this program commences shortly. In our Unite Against Child Abuse strategy, we trained over 100 coaches and police officers on child abuse in collaboration with UNICEF and the Trinidad and Tobago Cricket Board. We trained 174 bus, taxi, and maxi taxi drivers on child abuse in collaboration with UNICEF and the Public Transport Service Corporation. Madam Speaker, I'm proud to say that we would have launched this national program in Tobago. We are working across the seas, Madam Speaker, in collaboration, and no segment of society would be left out, including Naparima. Madam Speaker, we distributed 2 extra-large information posters on the types of child abuse and how to access help to all health facilities and primary and secondary schools in Trinidad, and we will be doing the same in Tobago. We distributed over 10,000 child rights books to primary schools across the country, and over 7,000 informational brochures distributed to the general public on child abuse. Madam Speaker, the Return to Happiness Initiative is a project led by UNICEF and sponsored at regional level that seeks to provide psychological interventions to children after a natural or man-made disaster. We have been fortunate that, knock wood, we haven't had any major disasters, Madam Speaker. But even though we are outside the hurricane belt, we have been taking the opportunity to prepare ourselves. Under this initiative, 4 trainers from Trinidad and Tobago were trained by UNICEF. 14 facilitators from various organizations were trained by the trainers, and an emergency response plan was developed. So in the unlikely event that we may have a natural disaster, we have persons trained in Trinidad and Tobago to be able to ensure the psychosocial needs of our children are well taken care of. Madam Speaker, in response to the increase in bullying and suicide, an interministerial committee was established. A strategy was developed and is currently being incorporated into a national overarching suicide prevention strategy championed by the Ministry of Health and PAHO. Madam Speaker, I wish to congratulate the Office of the Attorney General and all who contributed to the passage of the legislation that now forbids child marriage. Mr. Attorney General, I thank you on behalf of all the children of Trinidad and Tobago. Madam Speaker, this was a landmark achievement for the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Madam Speaker, permit me now to turn to the gender affairs and what we have been doing. The government continues to advance its legislative agenda to ensure that gender equality is achieved by 2030. We are focusing on identifying major pieces of legislation which present some measure of inequality and inequity for men and women, boys and girls, for amendment. We are starting building out our gender machinery. Gender focal points in various government ministries and agencies have been established. This will be used to advance gender issues in collaboration with the NGO community. Madam Speaker, capacity building for the Central Registry on Domestic Violence continues. 12 stakeholders, including directors and data entry clerks of the safe homes, as well as the National Domestic Violence Hotline, participated in a one-day training held on the 26th of April 2017. The overall objective was to improve data quality and understanding of the Central Registry software on domestic violence in an effort to improve our interventions. The Gender Affairs Division collaborated with a network of NGOs of Trinidad and Tobago for the Advancement of Women and the Equal Opportunity Commission, and we hosted a 3-day capacity building workshop on the CEDAW Convention. Madam Speaker, we recognize that in order for us to really move this agenda forward, we have to ensure that people are aware of the various things we sign on to and they are able to really fully contribute towards the process. Madam Speaker, we continue our programs aimed at resocialization of our men and boys to address misguided notions of masculinity. And I can't remember who it was, but somebody on the other side was saying that, we're going to continue to have all these issues of violence against women and abuse and link everything to the economy. But, Madam Speaker, it goes beyond the economy, it goes beyond employment. Madam Speaker, we have to reshape and refocus the way we think as a people. We have to help our men and boys to process masculinity and what it means in a different way. We have to teach our women and our girls to be able to, while they advance and they excel, to be able to support their men and boys so that they in turn would be able to support them. Madam Speaker, 80 participants graduated from the Defining Masculine Excellence program. This holistic training program targeted men from the ages of 14 years and onwards. This year's training was done across 3 venues. At the Point 14 Borough Corporation Auditorium, we facilitated the general public. At the Prison Training College in Arima, we facilitated members of the Trinidad and Tobago Protective Services. And at the old fire station building, Port of Spain, we facilitated the general public. Madam Speaker, we also provided food preparation and home management training for men and boys in the following communities: St. Barb's, Central Diego Martin, Mova, Jerningham Junction, Cunupia, Sobo, Vista Bella, Gasparillo, Maloney, Mount Pleasant, Calvary Hill, Arima, Esperance, Mayaro, Sangre Grande, and 5th Company, Moruga. Madam Speaker, we try to touch almost every corner of Trinidad. And we intend going forward to partner with the THA to bring some of these very dynamic and impactful training programs to my beautiful island and hometown. Madam Speaker, NIPDEC has advised that Madam Speaker, before I move on, we recognize in Trinidad and Tobago that yes, we have victims of domestic abuse and we have to provide safe spaces for them. We have been working towards that, Madam Speaker. NIPDEC has advised that the facilities will be ready for handover by December, and the Ministry of Works and Transport will deliver on the other facilities by March 2018. Madam Speaker, what would stand out when we finally establish our safe houses is the fact that in some of the safe spaces, we'll ensure that our women could go with their children, particularly their sons. It makes no sense that someone has to leave a situation that is unsafe, and when they're running, they have to leave their children behind. Madam Speaker, we are trying to ensure that whenever we provide intervention for women, we cater to the children as well. Madam Speaker, I now want to turn my attention to a very touchy area, the National Policy on Gender and Development. And I say a touchy area because I know civil society is waiting patiently to hear me say something about it, and I'll be heavily criticized, Madam Speaker. But as I said, our backs are very broad on this side. Madam Speaker, the National Policy on Gender and Development was referred to the Finance and General Purpose Committee for consideration in February 16, 2017. A subcommittee was established comprising of cabinet members. My colleague for St. Anne's East is also in the committee, and my colleague for La Hockito Talparo, when he returns, by God's grace, will also be continuing to serve on that committee. Madam Speaker, we have had a number of meetings, and I would say to the public that we are making meaningful progress, and hopefully in fiscal 2018, we'll be able to advance the work some more and have something concrete to lay before this honorable House. Madam Speaker, in 2018, we intend to roll out our specialized training for men and women in communities. Trainings particularly focusing on young girls and young boys to change mindsets to address the issues around domestic violence. Madam Speaker, we are fully aware of the influence of calypso and other cultural expressions on our society, and in this regard, we will undertake a gendered analysis of calypso through collaboration with TUCO in observance of Calypso History Month 2017 on the theme, What's Wrong with the Song? The Portrayal of Women and Men in Calypso. Madam Speaker, sometimes when I don't really play the radio often at home, and sometimes I hear my children coming from primary school and they're singing some songs, and I'm wondering, do you really understand what it is what you're saying? And sometimes I wonder if people writing really have any common sense. You hear a song talking about kicking a back door, and what bend it over. But what we're really trying to do, Madam Speaker, we really need to critically look at the things we put out in song and different cultural expression, because, Madam Speaker, subconsciously it changes people's perception and get people to act in ways they don't intend to act, Madam Speaker. So we have to be very mindful. Madam Speaker, we'll also continue our international observances throughout the fiscal year to ensure that there is sustained public education and sensitization and messaging so that it could change mindsets in Trinidad and Tobago. Madam Speaker, if we really want Trinidad and Tobago to advance, we have to focus on changing the way we think, changing the way we process things, changing the way we treat with each other. That is very, very, very crucial. Madam Speaker, in our thrust to ensure that we reduce the incidence of violence against our women, men, boys, and girls, we'll continue to engage our youths across the nation and target institutions, both public and private sector. Madam Speaker, for one of our programs this year, Massey would have reached out to the Office of the Prime Minister and asked us to facilitate their staff, Madam Speaker, at their own cost, but we would have provided the training framework and the facilitator, so we would have brought a meaningful program to a corporate entity. I want to encourage all of Trinidad and Tobago to know that the Office of the Prime Minister, we are here to work with you and for you if there are things that we can assist, please reach out to us. Corporate Trinidad and Tobago, yes, you may have to bear the cost, but we'll provide the information and the facilitators to guide us in helping to reduce the incidence of violence against our men, women, boys, and girls, and changing mindset. Madam Speaker, I wish to now briefly turn to the work of the Children's Authority. Madam Speaker, a new board was recently installed, and they have been charged with the responsibility of addressing those policy gaps at the authority, which emerged from the 2 investigations.
Honourable Member for Tobago East, your original time is now expired. You have 10 more minutes if you wish to avail yourself with it. Please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, despite the financial and human resource challenges that the authority faces, 49 new members of staff were recruited in fiscal 2017, enabling the authority to better respond to the needs of clients. We have seen the establishment of the Sangre Grande Assessment Center, commencement of the expansion of the Children's Authority into Tobago, including an assessment center and place of safety. Madam Speaker, the authority completed 29 forensic interviews, 242 forensic medical examinations, which aided in the collection of police statements and medical evidence to support criminal investigations of the Child Protection Unit. The authority completed 125 full multidisciplinary assessments, which allowed 125 children in need of care and protection to benefit from social work, medical, and psychological evaluations. Madam Speaker, the foster care unit received 162 expressions of interest, which included walk-ins, telephone calls, and email interest. 7 new foster parents have been approved by the authority, Madam Speaker, and that is commendable. Madam Speaker, that was just a brief snapshot of some of the achievements of the Children's Authority. Under the leadership of the new board, the authority will continue to address those internal and external concerns that prevent the authority from achieving its full mandate. Madam Speaker, as I close, the road ahead may be difficult, but I'm sure we will emerge from this journey stronger and a more resilient people. I call on my colleagues on the other side to change their language. I am one who believes in the power of the spoken word and speaking things into being. We do a disservice to the people of our country and our God when we as leaders use this honorable house to tear down rather than build up. Instead of cursing our land, let us proclaim blessings over Trinidad and Tobago. Our children are looking at us. Trinidad and Tobago is looking at us. Madam Speaker, the ball is in our court. The ball is in our court. We have the ability. We just need the will to change paradigms. Madam Speaker, I call on each and every one of us in this honorable house to do better, to be better, to speak more positively about our circumstances in Trinidad and Tobago. I call on my colleagues on the other side, Madam Speaker, to collaborate meaningfully with this government so that we could really have Trinidad and Tobago in the place we want it to be. Madam Speaker, if we work together, if we put aside our differences, be it religion, be it race, be it whatever, and truly work together in the best interest of the people of Trinidad and Tobago, there will be meaningful change. Madam Speaker, I thank you for the opportunity to contribute, and I ask God to bless each and every one of us and our country. Thank you.
Member for Caroni East.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thanks. I believe this is my 14th budget contribution, 8 in this place and 6 in the other. And I'm very pleased to be able to contribute to this 2018 budget this afternoon. First of all, let me offer sincere congratulations to our opposition leader, whom I consider made a brilliant methodical dissection and a detailed analysis of the 2018 budget, and one which the leader herself indicated was a brutally bankrupt, biased, a pauperizing budget, long on rhetorics, short on substance, filled with false and fake promises once again, and betrayal of the trust of the people. There were repeated blatant untruths and misleading statements from the Minister of Finance in this 2018 budget. So congratulations, Honorable Leader, on your precise clinical surgical incision of this 2018 budget. Also pointing a way forward for the continued development of this country and for ensuring sustainable development and an improvement in the well-being of all our citizens. Let me also congratulate all our colleagues on this side who made significant contributions in their relevant portfolio areas and who also did analyses of the budget, many of whom did also financial analyses. Let me take this opportunity on behalf of the opposition, since congratulations are in order, to sincerely congratulate the Trinidad and Tobago football strike squad team on their magnificent victory last night against the United States. I was in the Paisley Crawford Stadium in 1984, that's 33 years ago, when United States put water in our eyes. 89. I was there in 89, yes. They put water in our eyes when our goalkeeper was blinded by the light and obviously didn't see the ball. And United States, I understand, has been there for almost every World Cup, but now they have been thrown out of this World Cup by Trinidad and Tobago. So sincere congratulations to all the members of the strike squad, all the medical team, all the players, the managers, etc. Congrats from our opposition team, and I'm sure from the government and the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Madam Speaker, this budget remains being described as bankrupt of ideas, bankrupting the people and the country. And we have a debt of over $100 billion in local debt now. And when you divide that by 1.4 million people, each one of us now owes our future generation almost 70,000 TT dollars. What we have experienced in these 2 years, the government borrowed $17 billion in the midst of a pathetic governance, mismanagement, corruption, and waste by this Rowley-led government. That is the We Time Now government, and dangerously red and never ready Rowley-led government. People say Trinidad and Tobago is now governed by widespread deception and gross incompetence at the highest level and down through almost every state institution and special purpose companies, namely like the Port Authority, EFCL, HDC. The reality on the ground, Madam Speaker, is that this government is clueless and directionless and inept. The people are saying that, Madam Speaker, and I'm just echoing the sentiments of the people. The government is inept, is directionless, and it is clueless. They don't know how to manage and where to go. It is a government people do not trust and respect. There is widespread distrust and disrespect. People feel deceived, betrayed, and see the government as arrogant and condescending. Just heard the member for Tobago East? Yeah. Asking for respect by all members of Parliament and for us to say decent things in the name of God. But here's what your colleagues have been saying. We raised gas prices, and they ain't riot yet. Ha 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 ha. Didn't come here to engage in sterilization, in sterile debate and academic discussion. Sterile debate. Telling people to shut your mouth. And when confronted by the general public, they say we're telling the opposition to shut them out. Well, Madam Speaker, I've been in politics 21 years now. And 385,000 people in Trinidad and Tobago voted for this opposition. So when you tell the opposition to shut them out, you're in fact telling our 385,000 supporters to shut them out. That is extremely disrespectful. And I would expect better from an honorable Prime Minister to be telling the 250,000 children in this population, and for those words to be echoed from the head of government is very distasteful. And you would remember in 2010 when we started to give out the laptops, he termed the children as dunces. Then he himself called the children monsters. Then one of them called the children behaving like hyenas in the jungle. And our people as alligators in a murky lagoon.
Absolutely.
And even last Friday, the member for Port of Spain North subliminally introduced a race talk. And race talk emanates by the People's National Movement on their political platform. And it is disgraceful when you seek to divide the population by your rhetorics on the platform. People are listening to you. And here, our colleague from Tobago, a very decent lady, appealing to Parliament to bring some decency and order back into the country. And I want to tell the PNM that is what they should be considering. You remember the Calcutta ship? Yes? You remember when you say when you build your house in a lagoon, it will flood? And when they get caught in all of this, they're saying it's a communication glitch. And then the head of government seems to have a predilection for the female anatomic configuration in his speeches. But then again, perhaps I'm being naive to expecting decency, Madam Speaker. After all, according to the old age saying, a leopard cannot change its spots. A zebra cannot change its stripes. A Rottweiler cannot change its loud, obnoxious, vicious nature. And neither can a Pompek change its small, useless, irritating yapping. Madam Speaker, I have a few points to make on the finance aspect of the budget, but I must respond immediately to a statement made yesterday by the member for La Brea. And I want to just quote from the newspaper today. I didn't get a Hansard transcript, but this morning newspaper, Daily Express, Wednesday, 11th October, the member for La Brea is quoted as saying UNC policy fuels school violence. La Brea MP Nicole Oliveri has blamed surging violence and high dropout rates in schools on the United National Congress, saying yesterday these issues was mostly the product of education policies spearheaded by opposition leader Kamala Persad-Bissessar. It was a manifestation of UNC education policies, which included Persad-Bissessar's decision to remove corporal punishment from schools and her implementation of a system that places all children in the secondary system. When corporal punishment was removed, Oliveri said, no alternative methods of discipline were put into place. Let me bring some clarity to this. Trinidad and Tobago became a signatory to the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child. And the world, most of the leading nations and the developed nations signed in on that convention. So when you sign in on a convention on the rights of the child, you must bring it into law in your country. And so we made it into law. And the law banned corporal punishment. And therefore it was necessary to ban corporal punishment from schools.
They can't understand.
If you can't understand that, Labrie, I feel very sad. Was that a failure of the education system? Yeah. Then, Madam Speaker, if a parent is caught punishing a child unnecessarily, isn't there a legal criminal charge against it? So you can't do it in your home, so you can't do it in your school. And any one of you there would like to have your child in a school where the teacher now beats your child, you don't know what type of flogging, and the child, psychologically, that child becomes troubled and scarred. So it was removed because we signed into the Convention of the Rights of the Child, a UN declaration. And therefore, Madam Speaker, we acknowledge that there are difficulties in schools. All this issue of discipline and indiscipline and school violence goes back many, many years in our school system. Since 1985, the now deceased, God bless his soul, Clive Pantin, and Minister Garcia will tell you that there were a number of stakeholders' consultations on what you're doing about indiscipline in schools. Minister Garcia will tell you as well that when we served together in 1997 on the National Advisory Committee on Education, Minister Garcia was the tutor representative. I was the deputy chairman of the National Advisory Committee on Education. Clive Pantin was the chairman, and Sister Paul Donnellas was there as well. A very distinguished educator. And we had decided to put a number of things into place. And when our team came on in 2010, we had research on almost all the task forces and action plans from the Ministry of Education on the issue of school violence and indiscipline. And Minister Dikoto, who was with me at the time for the first 2 years, took the bull by the horn. And he did a tremendous job in that. And I will tell you some of the policies that we initiated and implemented, Madam Speaker. We had thousands of teachers trained and retrained in ADR and mediation. We brought up the full complement of student support services from 300 to 700. I remember the Honorable Prime Minister asking me, Minister, bring a cabinet note so that we can increase the amount of people in student support services. So we brought student support services to close to 700. We had educational, behavioral, clinical psychologists, school social workers, guidance counselors, guidance officers. Yeah. And that went on very strong and well in reducing the indiscipline and school violence. What we also did, we worked with the Teaching Service Commission to have the full complement of required deans of discipline. We had ensured that security officers and school safety officers have 2 handheld scanners in every secondary school. We put in CCTV cameras in schools. We subjected the students to walk-in body scans. We employed over 170 school safety officers in secondary schools, with at least 2 of these officers for government secondary school and 5 district coordinators. We had a full complement of security officers, 3 to 7 in all secondary schools. And there was a minimum of 3 security officers during the day, with some secondary schools benefiting from up to 7 security officers during the day. And I'm sure Minister Garcia is carrying that on, and Minister Lovell. We had a zero tolerance for indiscipline, bullying, and gangs. We had a very strong school-based management team in every school. And I hear the minister speaking about a school-based management team, and that you're continuing that, and that is very good for the education sector, which comprises the principal, the vice principal, the dean of discipline, student alumni, heads of the school supervisors, etc. And so we ensure that every school has a strong school-based management team to manage the school. And what is very important, there was an absence of local school boards. And the Prime Minister, being a former Minister of Education, questioned me on it and instructed me to bring a note to have 82 school boards placed for the schools, local school boards. And the local school boards comprise at least 3 members of the national community, the principal, 2 PTA representatives, 1 from tutor, etc. 7-member team. So that by doing that, you would assist the students being taken care of and guided by these local school boards who will be working with the schools to help support the discipline around. And my colleague, former Minister Karim, the member for Chaguanas East, being high up in the education sector, would remember and understand and appreciate what the consequences of when you implement this, what will happen. We had 1 teacher to every 14 students in the primary schools and 1 teacher to every 12 students in the secondary school. Way better than the gold standard around the world. We made sure we had 250 remedial teachers in the schools, 300 substitute teachers, and we worked with everyone else to ensure that we had a full complement of teachers in the schools. We implemented a system where we had motivational speakers conduct sessions throughout many of our schools. We were also working with the Ministries of National Security and Gender, Youth and Child Development in implementing other programs. Former Minister Karim, member for Chaguanas East, and myself, with our respective technocrats, brought together career guidance teams, 2-day workshops on career fairs for every year while we were ministers in education. And we conducted this in all education districts to over 80,000 students in just a 3-year period for students in Forms 3, 4, and 5. And my colleague, a member for Chaguanas East, can bear us out on that. Parenting. The member for Labray, you made no mention of the role of parenting in the issue of discipline of children. Parenting. Was it Mahatma Gandhi who said it takes a village to raise a child? Or is it Nelson Mandela? One of them. It takes a village to rear a child. So long ago, we would have the entire village looking after the children and taking care of the children when they move into and from school. But if there is violence in society, and marked violence, and in the villages, and the children are seeing this, their minds become overworked with what they're seeing before them, and some of them will adopt habits. And then when I remember while I was in the Senate, Minister Martin Joseph was speaking about 85 gangs operating in the country. And I asked if you know 85 gangs operating. That's before 2010. What are you doing about it? Why can't you do something about it? Now, the present Minister of National Security says there's a proliferation, probably close to over 120 gangs operating in Trinidad and Tobago. So we know that. And we know that gangs are operating in schools. So it is the responsibility of the Ministry of National Security and the government to take charge of the security systems and the security apparatus in the entire country and to rid the schools of the gangs as well. So we had more than 20,000 parents participating in over 300 workshops in parenting and education throughout the country in just 1 year, in the last year. And a parenting academy was established with support from the Student Support Services of the Ministry of Education. I hope both ministers are taking note of it and will check to see when they go back whether these things are working. We launched the first national student hotline, member for Labray, free talk, 800-4321, to provide professional counseling to students with confidentiality. We relaunched and reformatted our National School Code of Conduct. We established a Circle of Hope, where students have a special session on a weekly basis where they speak with teachers on issues they may have. We had the full complement, of course, of student support services. I mentioned that before. And we were partnering with the various ministries to ensure that what we did was relevant. Literacy and numeracy. The minister, in his 55-minute contribution, Minister Garcia, member for Erima, said that we will provide literacy and numeracy, that the students will be efficient. But, Honorable Minister, you said, we will do this, we will do that, we will do that. But we did it. And you're still trying to do it. We had significant improvements in literacy. If you have any program to improve the literacy and numeracy, I commend you and your colleague. And I would like, because we're all in this together, for education of our children. We are here because God has been good to us and gave us an education so that we can represent our people. And you said that no one must be left behind, no child must be left behind. It was the mantra of our political leader and Prime Minister at the time that no child must be left behind and no one must be left behind. And her discipline and watchwords were serve, serve, serve. And we worked. And I'm sure that is your thinking as well. But sometimes I feel that there is some degree of inactivity and whether, well, I don't know whether it's some incompetence, management incompetence, whether management incompetence. So you all might meet well. But the issue in this country, and I'm sure my friend from Laventille West will agree with me, is, I'm not talking about that, it's a management issue. It's a management issue in this country. You can have all the ideas, but if you're not able to manage, you will not get anything done. Yeah. So we had significant improvements in literacy and numeracy nationally, with the highest academic performance in history in 2014 in all 3 exams, SEA, CSEC, and CAPE. And we even bettered it in 2015, Madam Speaker. The support for literacy and numeracy proficiency with universal after-school homework and study centers. Madam Speaker, I'm saddened. We are very saddened to know, honorable ministers, why have these 400+ homework centers in these schools that were working to help support the parents and the children who were having difficulties in school during the day, to allow them a 2-hour session in the evening from 15 minutes after school closed? Would you give way? Yes, sure, Minister. Yeah.
Madam Speaker, I would like to bring to the attention of the member for Caroni East that the homework centers that he has been talking about for the longest while came to an end in May 2010, during his tenure. During his tenure, it came to an end. Thank you.
Right. So, Madam Speaker, in May 2010, schools closed in June 2010, election held in September 2010. We would expect them that a very honorable and decent thing as having homework centers would be continued automatically. We didn't have to go back and do that again. So why didn't you consider? Many of you are parents. Many of you are parents here, and you have children who went to school. Isn't it a nice thing that you know that children who are having difficulty in school can be in school for 2 hours, supervised and educated by 2 of the best in the schools? And that was only costing $300 an afternoon. So for 4 days a week, 1,200 per school per week. So why wasn't it considered? Support, we had a Dial a Teacher program providing toll-free help in maths and English for SEA students, and maths, English, and integrated science for CSEC students. We had employed over 280 remedial teachers and close to 300 substitute teachers in primary and secondary schools in different subject areas. We had a coaching program for secondary Form 1. 69 coaches were hired, trained, and deployed. Approximately 3 out of 4 students were now getting more than 50%. 2 out of 3 students receiving more than 60% SEA passes, and 94% of the students taking the CAPE examination passed in 2014. Approximately 2,000 new teachers were hired between 2010 and 2015, 900 secondary and 700 primary, and 400 ECC teachers. And we gave almost 2,000 scholarships, open and additional, awarded to CAPE students during the last 5 years. You know what was in PNM time? In 2008, they gave 48 scholarships then, in 2008. 48. Yeah. No. Madam Speaker, yeah.
Members, it's agreed that we'll take the lunch break now. We shall resume at 2 p.m.